Hello and welcome to Blood on the Tamesis Memoriam, a Vampire the Masquerade one-shot set in Oxfordshire, England, 1962. With me tonight we have Kirsty.
Hi, I'm playing Marjorie of Clan Toreador.
And we also have Zan.
Hi, I'm playing Chester Andrews of Clan Toreador.
And we have Cedar.
Hi, I'm playing Leona, also of Clan Toreador.
And joining us for a third time, reprising his role, is Mitch.
Hi, I'm going to be returning as Sir Thomas Dillamore of Clan Toreador.
So astute people in our audience will realise that there's quite a few Toreador in this session, and that is by design. So this is the third of our one-shots that we've been doing that are set in the kind of Oxfordshire's history or vampiric history. If you've not seen the main chronicle at all, you are more than welcome to stay and watch this one. It is a self-contained story that hopefully will be enjoyable, in its own right. But if you have been following either the other one-shots or the chronicle itself, then hopefully there will be some characters that you will recognise and some fun Easter eggs for you to enjoy as well. So this 1962 one-shot actually has the same chronicle tenets as the main chronicle, but I'm going to very, very briefly skim over them just so you have a sense of what kind of things might stain the souls of our characters as they progress through this session. So the first one is be true to your lord. In this case, your lord will mean potentially your sire, particularly if you've not yet been released into the city. It can also refer to any of the knights who have seniority over you, and it will of course refer to Prince Drogo. I should add, of course, that for all of you, Sir Thomas Dillamore will count as your lord. So the next one is bring no shame upon your blood. This is, again, not something where doing shameful acts is bad. It is doing shameful acts that are found out about. So as long as nobody knows, you're golden. But if it comes out in some kind of public forum or to someone of importance, that will get you stains. And the last one is serve not the beast. So again, it is really good, or not really good, it's acceptable in terms of your soul to do horrible, monstrous things, providing you are doing them consciously and of your own free will. But if the beast starts to take any control over your actions, then that is bad for your soul, and it's seen as inappropriate for a citizen of Oxfordshire. So with all of that out of the way, I think we can get pretty much straight in. I just want to very quickly say that this is Dylan Appreciation Week again, and do show him some love in the chat whilst we're there. And also to say a thank you to Mitch for he is often involved a lot in the kind of the plotting and keeping all of the strings tied together in these sessions. Also means I can pass some responsibility over should anything terrible happen in the future. All right, so with that in mind, we are starting off on Monday, the 13th of April, 1962. So we've got like the beginnings of Beatlemania. There are kind of shifts from the more austere fashions of the 50s. We're not into the full swinging 60s yet, but we're definitely in the beginning of that. So people who are on the cutting edge are starting to display those kind of fashions and behaviors, but still a large portion of society are a little shocked by these things as they come up. And we're going to start in a place in Weston-on-the-Green, which is quite a pleasant house, which is owned by one Alastair Tamsin Burke. Now, Alastair Tamsin Burke is also of Clan Toreador, and he is Thomas's grandchild. He is also the sire of Barnaby Jones, who is also the sire of one Leona. So we're going to start with you, Leona. I should say it's a very nice kind of townhouse. It has been extended multiple times. You're aware that it was originally extended to provide a home for Barnaby and has now been extended a second time, so it has a little section just for you to inhabit. However, there is no way for you to leave the house without going through into some of the other sections to get to the main door. So every time you come in and out to go to your room or anything like that, you tend to have to kind of go through the other places. So as I say, it is a sort of fairly ordinary evening, and when you've woken and the blood has stirred your dead flesh into action, you will find that Barnaby is waiting for you. So just so as you know, Barnaby is about 5'6". He looks like a 16-year-old boy. He has quite a sort of slicked hairstyle with brill cream and a side parting. He has brown hair. He is wearing a shirt and a tie and what looks like some kind of fairly bright orange V-neck sweater. He has a pencil tucked behind one ear. He is quite slender looking as well, I should say. He does not fill out his jumper in any sense. What does Leona look like?
Leona is a little bit shorter than Barnaby. She is Eastern European. She kind of has like a brown tone to her skin. And she kind of looks like Dolly Parton and Priscilla Presley had a baby. So this like huge mop of black curly hair that she's kind of like somewhat beehived and is being all held together by like one dainty headband. Big doe eyes, and right now she's wearing probably an outfit that from head to toe is lemon yellow and all matching.
It should be noted, of course, that Leona is absolutely gorgeous and the kind of person that just lights up a room whenever she enters it. Barnaby is not the kind of person that lights up a room whenever he enters it. He's a more quiet soul. And when he sees you, though, he will smile, as he always does when he sees you. And he says, evening.
Hi. I'm gonna like straighten his tie and like smooth out his jumper a little bit.
He puts up a show of looking a bit irritated that you're doing this, but you think secretly he quite likes that you're fussing over him. And he says, so where were you last night?
I went out to the gallery. Like they have a new Rothko piece that I wanted to take a peek at.
Oh, right. Because I checked in and I couldn't find you. So you went to the gallery. Was it anything exciting happen, or was it?
No, in all honesty, I kind of snuck my way in. I didn't want to wait until the exhibit opened. I really wanted to see that Rothko.
He waggles his finger at you, but again in a kind of fairly playful way. Now, to determine just how big of a lie this is, we are going to do a quick Memoriam scene of the night before. So we're going to go back to Sunday the 12th of April, where Leona found herself in a place called the Funhouse. So I'm wondering, Chester, if you could tell us a little bit about the Funhouse and what it's like, particularly the ground floor.
Yes, the upper floors are the main point of attraction for most of the kind who frequent the Funhouse. It is a layer of excitement and a layer of excess. There are various high-end sound equipment, a very nice, well-stocked bar, comfortable chairs, and flashing lights. Definitely on the cutting edge of this new psychedelic trend that is rapidly taking over the land. Have to keep the neighbors envious. The ground and second floor are busy, packed with sweating kind and the odd predator walking amongst them, enjoying themselves, getting lost in the moment, and trying to forget the virtues they spoke earlier that Sunday morning.
So Leona probably finds herself dancing to the music. There are flashing lights. It is bright. This feels like a place where she is truly alive, because frankly, the place where you live is quite drab. Not actually that pleasant for you to have it in, apart from in your room, of course. And Leona very quickly will attract a crowd of cool, hip youngsters who will want to dance kind of around her and with her to the music as you all practice your latest dance moves. Gradually, however, as much as Leona is lost in the moment and having a good time and having fun, she will become vaguely aware that her uncle Chester is kind of watching from. He's recently arrived and is watching from one side of the room near a door you hadn't noticed before. So can we just have a quick description of Chester?
Of course. Chester is a man of not remarkable height, about 5'8", 5'9", a square-cut jaw with a cleft chin that he's trying to hide behind a stylish soul patch, a boisterous mustache, expertly curled to give him a little bit of flair. He wears a suit of purple crushed velvet and a loose tie.
So this is a bit of a treat for Leona to be. You've heard of Chester's Club, of course. You've heard the rumours, but to actually be here is something else entirely. And it's been a pretty heady experience. Nevertheless, you get the sense that maybe Chester wants your attention. Do you give it to him?
Oh yeah, I'm dancing my way over there, all smiles.
Okay, as you begin to dance off, various people are like trying to beckon you, like, come back, but you kind of funk your way.
I'll just be a minute. Don't you worry about it.
So they will go back to being groovy without you, and you make your way over to Chester. So she will, as if summoned, she arrives.
Hello, my lioness. It's so good to see you. What do I owe the pleasure on this night?
Well, Uncle Chess, I managed to sneak my way out of the house, and I thought I'd come give you a little visit.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I think I see new teeth growing behind that smile. You're learning, aren't you?
Learning, or, trying not to be so uptight.
Well, if you're trying not to be so uptight, perhaps I can show you where the real fun of the fun house is.
Oh, if this isn't the real fun, should I be worried?
Oh, yes.
So with that, Chester will begin to lead you down the steps into a whole other world that seems to exist kind of within the other world of the funhouse. So what will she see, Chester, as she goes down the stairs?
She'll see first. She will see a lounge of sorts, overstuffed chairs and soft curtains, electric light that seems to be trying to imitate candlelight, but of course this room is far too flammable for actual candles and no other reason. There are maybe a dozen or so kine in here, embracing each other in some fashion or another throughout the night. The smell of spilled alcohol and sweat is pretty heavy throughout the room. And I'll gesture and say, do you see anything you like?
Whilst you're looking around, Leona, it will also strike you that as well as the kind that are here, there are also a couple of kindred that you recognise when you've been brought into court before. Specifically, there are a pair of twins that you know are not your clan. Both look to be in their early 30s. Both have quite slender features. One of the twins is impeccably dressed, and his hair is tied back in a very neat ponytail. The other's hair is worn loose, as is his shirt, which has no tie and just seems to hang at a slightly kind of odd angle on his body, as if it doesn't want to conform to any lines. But they seem to be engaged in kind of quiet conversation. But will you see, Leona, because you're quite astute about these things, that they give Chester a very respectful acknowledgement as he makes his way in. You will know that the smarter of the twins is called Wallace, and he has recently been one of the victors in the games that took place, which you didn't get to see, very sadly, because you're not yet recognised as a citizen. But you've heard it was very exciting and bloody, but you never got to see it. But anyway, he was one of the victors, and his brother Seth was not competing in the games, but nevertheless, they are both clan Ventru.
Oof. I'm gonna very excitedly hang off Chester's arm and go, You didn't tell me the Cowboys were here.
Oh, of course. You can only expect to run into the most distinguished at the funhouse.
Wouldn't expect any less.
This is, I think, a fine place for us to spend a little while and get comfortable. And I'll gesture to one of my staff and have a bottle of red wine brought over, and will make myself comfortable on a fainting couch and gesture to a nearby seat.
Oh yeah, I'll plop down and find like a pillow to put in my lap and hold. So
Now, go ahead, dear.
This is every night this happens. All of this.
Most every night. There are some nights that we have private parties, shall we say, entertaining guests new to the city.
Oh, well, I'm very impressed. I don't think I've seen anything like this, or at least Barnaby doesn't let me see anything like this.
Oh, well, Barnaby is a love, but doesn't have as much of an eye for excitement as you and I do.
Not unless it's a clock he can take apart.
Well, would you care for a drink?
I'm starved. Yes, please.
And instead of offering her my wine, I'll look to the staff and say, go ahead, take your pick.
So Leona has never drunk fresh from a person before. You've always had your blood provided in bags by Barnaby. He's generally dissuaded you from kind of hunting and the thrill of the fresh flesh. But now that it's offered to you, gosh, it's tempting. Goodness, you never realized just how hungry you were until this moment.
Are you sure? I mean, I'm really only allowed to have like snack packs.
Oh, well, it's okay. I think you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in trouble anyway if Barnaby finds out you came and paid Uncle Chester a visit. So he can only hang you once, right?
True. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Exactly. Go ahead, take your pick. Man, woman, something in between, something neither.
I think Leona is going to find herself a strapping gentleman.
There is a strapping gentleman that you can discover. I assume you're taking him somewhere discreet, or are you not?
I think for right now, I just intend to bite him.
You're just going to go bite him in kind of public view, as it were.
I mean, if Uncle Chester says it's okay.
Maybe a bit of polite conversation here, and then take him down to the next floor. That's how we do things here.
Okay, I can do that.
When the owner says that and smiles at you, she's just so sweet and innocent, it's hard to hold it against her, you know? So you'll find a strapping gentleman and you will make some small talk with him. He's already partaken of something. He's not the most coherent conversation, but he's very delighted to be talking to you, and seems to think you're really, really amazing. And he will say so on several occasions. And at whatever point you decide to take him downstairs, there will be no resistance from him. Indeed, he's quite excited to go. Chester, you will remain drinking your wine, I assume, and enjoying your business. And
oh yeah, I have to make sure to keep an eye on what the twins are up to.
Sure.
But I trust that the gentleman will be on his best behavior, as he's been instructed to.
Yes. Well, Wallace I imagine, has also been given permission to partake of some of your fine goods. So he will also go downstairs at some point. Seth will be generally looking like someone who's slightly bored and is going to probably develop their own entertainment if someone's not provided for them.
I pull Wallace aside as he leaves
Okay.
shortly after Leona, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shake his hand and pull him close.
Okay.
And say, "You keep an eye on my lioness. Make sure she doesn't drink too much. You keep her safe. Understood?"
Of course. Any friend of yours, Chester, is a friend of mine.
Excellent. Glad we have an understanding.
Oh, we've always got an understanding, my friend. And he will slip away.
Okay. And Seth is looking bored, you said.
Oh, yeah. He looks at, now that Wallace is gone and they've stopped talking about whatever they're talking about, he's looking around like someone who's looking for some kind of entertainment. You see his knees jiggling slightly.
Seth, my friend, I can't help but notice you don't seem to be having the time of your life tonight.
You know, I noticed that too. You got any suggestions for me, Chester? You're normally such a clever guy.
I think I do. And I point to a wraithly thin figure on a couch on the other side of the room, wearing a loose bit of black and white tie-dye, kind of a smock-style piece that is goes to about the knees. Say, why don't you help them downstairs? And I think you'll find they have an excellent taste, maybe one you haven't experienced before.
You know, now you mention it, Chester, I am feeling kind of helpful.
I always knew you were.
He will shake your hand very enthusiastically, and then he will head off, as you've suggested.
Cool. I'll return upstairs and start making the rounds with any local kind figures that have made their way into the bar.
Having seen to the guests of your club and members of your line, you return to business in your kingdom. Meanwhile, Leona, you have found this strapping gentleman. You are feeding upon him. And the thing that strikes you is that the blood you've drank before has been nourishing in the same way that very bland food will fill your belly, but won't bring you a great deal of pleasure. That you realize up till now, it's been the relief of the easing of the hunger that you've been experiencing. But this is different. This is pleasure. This is a kind of experience you didn't really think it was, that you could have had. And such is the resonance in the blood that you drink that until you feed again, or until something drastic happens to you, you will get a +1 die to any presence-related rolls that you make. This man is in high spirits indeed and very much enjoying your company. And you drink, and it's good and wonderful. And he seems to be enjoying it, and you're enjoying it, and everything's great. And this is the best place you've ever been. And then at some point, you feel a pair of ice cold hands on your cheeks. And it startles you because your eyes have been closed. It startles you out of this kind of bliss that you've been experiencing. And you feel your head being tilted upwards, which is going to remove your fangs from the skin of the man you're feeding on. And as you open your eyes, you realize your face is only a few inches away from Wallace's face.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry.
Good evening to you, Miss Leona. I would recommend that you cease your enjoyments at this time. I think this gentleman's had enough fun for one evening.
I'm going to have a look at my new friend.
He does look very pale now.
Oh, God, okay. I didn't hurt him, did I? He seemed really nice. He tasted like hard
Wallace
candies.
shakes his head, says, "He'll recover, as long as you stop now.
Huh.
This is the fun house, after all, not the house of the dead."
Well, you and me being here makes me think differently.
He smiles at you. Says, "I like your sense of humor. I take it your sire taught you to clean up after you were done feeding." And he glances at the punch marks on the man's neck.
My sire taught me that blood comes from a bag, so...
Then you've got a lot of delightful things to learn, my dear.
Well, I mean, if you want to teach me.
He says, "I would be happy to. Of course, as long as it's fine with Chester. He's also a fine teacher."
He is, and most things I do is just fine with Chester.
But I understand he's very fond of you, and anyone that's dear to him is dear to me, dear to mine. So if you ever need anything, you just let me know.
Okay, I love making new friends.
I'm sure you do. And with that, he will bid you a good evening. And that's where we're going to end the Memoriam and bring ourselves back to you and Barnaby in a much less brightly lit, exciting environment. So the lie that you've told him is a whopper of a lie. So it's a fat, massive, explosive lie on lots of levels. Nevertheless, your ability to look innocent in the face of scrutiny will enable you to, you don't need to roll to fool Barnaby into thinking that that's the case. The issue you have, however, is that Barnaby counts as your lord, as he is your sire, and you are not being very true to him. So do you have any convictions that you can use to fend off the stain I'm about to throw at you?
Oh, God. I'm going to say probably... I mean, one of my convictions is always keep a secret, and we could say that Uncle Chester...
I mean, that is an absolutely appropriate conviction. So yes, in this instance, the stain does not reach your soul because you believe in secrets. They're important things. So it's all good. Everything's fine. So Barnaby will say to you, so I was going to save this for later, but seeing as you've started sneaking out, probably this won't be the last time. I've got a present for you.
Well, I should sneak out more often then if you're going to give me more presents.
That really isn't the point, but okay, fine. But if you are going to go out, you should be careful. I know that, well, we don't have as much to fear as most people, but that still can be dangerous out there. He goes to collect some kind of package as he's talking. He says, you know, when I was new to this life and I got itchy feet, Alastair used to tell me the story of the bowman. Has he ever told you about that?
No.
So, a long time ago in the city, there was a scourge who served the prince before Sir Francis, and he seems to have picked up whatever it is, and he's coming back towards you. He says, "Well, what nobody realised was that he was feeding on other vampires, but not just feeding on them; he was eating them, blood and soul. He used to prey on the fledglings, especially the ones that didn't come from good lines, didn't have people looking out for them. Well, one day the city found out, and the prince ordered a blood hunt. And as far as this was all before my time, but he got chased out of the city. Thing is, they never caught him. Alastair tells me that somewhere out there, the bowman still walks the streets. He says, looking for fledglings, especially ones that have strayed out without permission. So you be careful, okay?"
Barnaby, I'd lived through the Holocaust. You can't scare me with the boogeyman.
He sighs. Says, well, in that case, you better have this. He will give you what looks to be a dagger in a sheath.
Well, I mean, diamonds are a girl's best friend, but I'll take weapons.
I'm not very good at making diamonds. I can make knives, though.
Wow, you have great handiwork, Barnaby.
Have a look.
I'll open it up and examine it.
So when you unsheath it, you see there is an inscription on the blade. And it says, don't read this, run.
Always to the point, I see.
Yeah, subtlety is not really my thing.
I like that about you.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, we need to get ready because tonight's the night. So have I told you about Thomas? I mean, about meeting him, about what you do and what you don't do, and all of that. I mean, outside of court, this is so much to remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules. I will be on my best behavior.
Yes,
I promise.
be on your best behavior. And generally, I find the best thing to do is not really talk too much and agree. And then normally everything's fine.
You know, I'm really good at not talking.
He smiles at you in that kind of, yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll be fine anyway. Let's get going.
Okay.
He will have a quick look at your outfit, seem to decide that that's fine, and then you set off. Meanwhile, outside of Oxfordshire, we're going to come to Marjorie. So Marjorie, it's been a long time since you've been to the city. And although the letters that you've received from Barnaby and your new pen pal, Leona, assure you that everything is fine and that the prince is not angry with your unscheduled exit from affairs, it still feels a little bit dangerous coming back. And as you walk down the road and get closer and closer to Thomas's dwelling, gradually the stars in the sky become slightly harder to see. And it's strange for you because on the one hand you're coming home and that feels good, but on the other you're losing sight of something that also gave you hope, and you feel a certain claustrophobia even outside as you walk. You're making your way towards Broughton Castle, which is at the northmost end of Oxfordshire. So you don't actually have to go kind of too far in to get there, which means that it's very unlikely you're going to have any issues with the gatekeeper or anyone else, should that be a thing, as you'll be going to Thomas's first. Just before we get into the scene with her, can we just get a quick idea of what Marjorie looks like?
Yes. Marjorie is a woman with shoulder-length platinum blonde hair. She's got this kind of round face with plump cheek and very light blue eyes. She's got these big round glasses with a white rim around them. She wears very modern clothing, highly waisted bright blue trousers and a soft salmon shirt. Overall, she seems very well kept, but her posture is just slightly overcorrected, which makes her look a little bit snobbish. And on her left wrist, she's got this really ornate watch.
Ah, yes, the watch. So you make your way towards Broughton Castle, which is kind of part manor house, part castle, very grand, has its own moat. You are coming here in part because you felt the need to kind of return home, but also increasingly you have felt the need from someone else that you come home. And you have found yourself thinking of Thomas, your grandsire, more and more frequently, until it became so present in your thoughts, that sense of him, that memory of him, that sense of how nice it is to see him and how important he is to you, that you found that you just had to make the trip back. And soon, the familiar sight of the castle is before you. There are still some stars visible above. It is a clear night. But of course, as you get closer to it, the walls eclipse more and more of the sky. And you find yourself standing before the great doors.
She will force herself to breathe and then open them.
There's still something, despite the fact you don't need to, something good and human about breathing, about forcing the blood to mimic the signs of life and to have those habits. There's something about relieving the stress that Marjorie is still able to hold on to. Not long after you've knocked on the doors, you will see Thomas's old ghoul, Eugene, answer the door. He looks like a man in his late 60s. He has a slightly military bearing. He moves very, very slowly, and he looks a teeny bit like Peter Cushing, for what it's worth. And he will bow to you when he sees you. It's a slow, stiff bow, and then he'll gradually right himself again. And he says, Sir Thomas is expecting you.
Ah, I see.
Please, come this way.
Yes, thank you.
And you step into the castle itself. And as the door shuts behind you, that sense of being caught again, trapped somehow within Oxfordshire, becomes stronger and more dominant. There is to Marjorie's mind, an ominous sound to the way the door shuts. You're taken through corridors that you know very well until you finally come to a receiving room. Not the grand receiving room where you would expect to find Thomas himself, but a place where guests might wait before a formal gathering. And Eugene will stop at the door as you go in, and will kind of bow and close the doors. And he will just say, Sir Thomas will send for you shortly, and the door will close. And you find yourself in a room with your sire. So Madeline, just for reference, Madeline Croft, she is quite a statuesque woman who looks like she has a bit of French blood in her. She also has a dash of corpse in her appearance, even when she does use the blush of life, which certainly isn't tonight. She has brown hair, which is worn up, and she is dressed in a medieval gown of sapphire blue with slashed sleeves and a kind of square collar, which is quite low, that shows a sort of a second garment, which is studded with jewels beneath it. She also has excellent, almost too perfect posture and holds herself upright. And she regards you down the length of her nose and says, well, well, look what the cat has dragged in.
And a good evening to you, Madeline.
As well. Sir Thomas did say you would be coming, and for the first time in my life, I almost didn't believe him. But here you are.
I am.
She says, you did know this was to be a formal occasion.
I suppose so, but I figured that the times are changing, and I wanted to update my look, as it were.
How quaint. Well, putting your suppositions and your figurings to one side, I have some good news for you.
You do?
Sir Thomas in his wisdom has chosen to give you a gift. This is one which will save you from any further embarrassment, fortunately. And she will present you with what looks to be an outfit. He insists that you wear it for dinner. He says, and she'll lean forward and she says, and I insist that you wear it.
Of course. I'm not one to ever refuse a gift from Sir Thomas, of course. I will get changed.
So when you say that, her features harden And she says, oh. She says, was it Sir Thomas's request that had you leave the city? Do you remember the oath you swore to the prince? That we all swore? Be true to your lord?
I remember it. I remember it very well, Matt.
Well, thanks to you, I've had to lie to the prince to save from bringing shame upon our line and Sir Thomas. I hope your little trip was worth it.
In all honesty, Madeline, Oxfordshire's walls are perhaps not suited for me. I am here on Sir Thomas's request.
She will push the outfit into your arms and she says, it is not a question of whether Oxfordshire is suited for you. It is a question of being suited for Oxfordshire. Now I suggest you see to it.
She will.
Oh, I wondered if you were going to get into a bit of... So you...
It just takes just a moment too long, but then goes.
Knowing Marjorie, of course, the unhappiness on her face is not well hidden at all. And that only makes the air of displeasure around Madeline grow the stronger. And the two of you radiate displeasure at each other for a few moments, and then you swish away with the outfit in your arms to some rooms that have been set aside for you to change. Indeed, when Chester and Leona arrive, you too will be greeted by Madeline, who will also, in a fairly offhand, imperious fashion, say, "Ah, I see you have all chosen your attire for the evening. Well, I have some very good news for you. Sir Thomas has chosen your attire for the evening. Please put these on." And she will hand you outfits as well.
Oh. I'm going to look at it and look slightly disappointed and just say quietly to myself, I look like sunshine, though.
Of course.
So you're taking this with a smile, I assume, Chester?
Oh, yes.
I should say as well that when, Chester, you come to the castle and are greeted by Eugene and taken in, there is a sense you are no longer in your kingdom. And also a sense that this is not a place where people can indulge. It's not a place where people can be themselves and be free. Mm. This is a place of ancient manners and old, rigid thinking. And just being here brings back certain memories that you would rather forget. Leona, from your point of view, there are some colourful tapestries here, but they're not bright enough. In fact, this place is not bright enough at all. It's all old-fashioned candlelight and lanterns and not much else. There's too many shadows and there's too much flicker rather than flash in these lights for you. And you will feel slightly ill at ease here. Both of you for different reasons. If it is any consolation, though it may not be, Leona and Chester, you will sense that Barnaby too seems to be suffering in his own way now that he is here. So I assume you're going to put on these outfits that have been given to you. Yeah. So I should say these are all... Sorry, Chester?
Yeah, I was going to ask what the outfit was.
So these outfits are formal wear that will be appropriate, and depending on your history, to you will probably just seem somewhere vaguely in the past, the medieval past. So we are talking not very, we're talking fairly sort of plain hanging tunics with quite heavily embroidered edges, sleeves that come halfway down your fingers, stuff that nobody has worn for at least, I don't know, 400 or 500 years, apart from in like a museum or some kind of Shakespearean play.
If I feel like I can avoid taking my outfit off while still wearing this outfit, then that's what I'll do.
You can certainly put your outfit over the top if you want. People with
No, I want to put the new outfit over mine. If I have to wear a mask, my clothing.
That's what I mean. You can put the new outfit over the top of yours.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I won't actually disrobe.
Okay.
I don't like the feeling of being that naked in here.
Sure.
It's not right.
And what about you, Leona?
I'm gonna put it on, but I'm gonna keep my yellow tights and my yellow shoes and my yellow hairband on, and just look like I'm trying to really making an effort not to complain about this.
Sure.
And every once in a while, I'll just look at Barnaby with this complete pain and suffering in my eyes.
He says to you, "I completely understand."
It's not too much. It's fine. I'm fine. And then I'm just gonna hang off of his arm and try to smile.
Sure. You smile much more convincingly than he does. He says to you, though, under his breath, he says, "Just count to 5 million and it will all be over."
Okay.
So, in your new attire, you will all gradually find yourself in the receiving room. So Madeline is here. Also, you will all be here, and the other person that hasn't yet appeared is Alastair. He will come in as well. So Alastair is an attractive man. He has very long black hair, kind of grey-blue eyes that have a little bit of a twinkle to them. And although most of you look kind of a little bit like you've been forced into these clothes, he's wearing this very high-collared kind of black cloak that's heavy velvet that he seems really happy with. And you will note that all of his stuff is black, whereas most of yours are kind of various colours. And you will know, of course, from long association that Alastair normally wears black anyway, so he seems to have won the jackpot in these outfits some way or the other. So just for anybody who's following along and is trying to make sense of who everybody is in relation to everyone, I'm going to give a quick family summary of how everyone's related, and then I'm going to let you all free to play in this scene whilst you wait on Thomas's pleasure in this room. So obviously Thomas is the head of the line. He has had 2 children, Madeline and Chester. Madeline has then had 2 children, which is Marjorie and Alastair. Alastair has had a child as Barnaby, and Barnaby has then had a child of Leona. So we'll try and throw in some reminders as we go. But yes, these are all quite a closely related bunch of kindred who will all have their own history, as you will see. So the only person, you haven't yet gone into where Thomas is, wherever he is, but you are all together. One of the things that will strike you, Leona, the moment that you see Marjorie, is you will realise that when you went to court with Barnaby and you met Barnaby's coterie, because you know that he works in the Southern Beam, you will remember that one of the coterie, Sally, has the exact same glasses that Marjorie is wearing. And now that you think about it, she seemed to be wearing similar style of clothes as well. Just the kind of thing I think Leona would notice. So over to you, players. Anybody you wish to approach or anything you wish to do?
As soon as Marjorie enters the room, I'm booking it over to her. I'm going to give her a big hug, and I'm going to go, "Auntie Jo, you're home!"
Leona, dear, look at you. Aren't you pretty as a picture? Let me look at you. And she'll kind of fuzz over you, kind of try to smooth out the bow and the dress a little bit.
I had a much better outfit planned, but
So did I, sweetheart. So did I.
You look wonderful. I missed you.
I missed you as well. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really happy that you decided to come home. It feels like something, like a puzzle piece is back in place.
Yes, Oxfordshire has always remained my home, even if in my absence. So I'm never far.
I know.
Now, let's go talk to your sire. I'm sure he'll be happy to see me.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna grab her by the hand and drag her over to Barnaby to present her.
So as you're making your way over to Barnaby, Chester, you'll be aware of Madeline kind of glancing you up and down, and you have that horrible feeling like if any of your old outfit, your kind of actual outfit is peeking out, that she has spotted that one little corner of fabric that's poking out in the wrong place.
She would have.
She doesn't say anything. She kind of doesn't need to. You know that she's seen it. She knows that you know. And it just kind of exists unspoken in the air between you. Unless, of course, you wish to say something about it.
No, I'll let that one.
Sorry, Chester. Is there anything you wish to say about it?
No. I was going to say, as soon as Chester noticed Marjorie, he would have gone over to Barnaby and started loudly talking about how pleasant the city has been the last few years, and recounting lovely things that have happened in the, let's say the last 5 to 8 years. Just like old friends catching up. I imagine catching Barnaby a little bit off guard by that.
Yeah, he is caught
Chester's.
off guard.
He's being very friendly with Barnaby.
Your sudden sort of charismatic onslaught does kind of catch Barnaby off guard, but he just kind of nods and says, yes, a lot. And generally, you just kind of have things just as you want, where it sounds as if you're having this very engaged, friendly conversation as Leona and Marjorie arrive. So the four of you are now in a little clique.
Oh, hello, Leona. So good to see you again.
Look,
and I'll continue my conversation.
Look who I found. Like she's home, isn't it? It's wonderful. She's home.
Barnaby will look at you and says, "It's really good. Are you coming back for real?"
Yes, I am. I'm sorry for not making for writing to you about this, but yes.
Well, that's okay. Does this mean you're going to be, taking back over things?
Should I be allowed to? I
mean, I could put in a word for you. I'm sure that they'd probably rather you do the job than me.
We'll see how reuniting goes for tonight. We'll talk about it.
Okay. So if no one else is immediately doing anything dramatic, then Alastair will come over and he will come to you, Marjorie, and he will take your hands in his and he will say, he says, "My dear, dear Marjorie." And he will press your hands to his lips and kiss them. He says,
it's so good to see you.
He says, "Truly we have missed you, missed your spirit." He says, "That is what Oxfordshire needs. It's good you've come back." As he's speaking and as he says that about Oxfordshire needing spirit, from across the room, Madeline's eyes narrow several fractions. He then will swirl with a little flicker of his cape to you, Chester, and he'll shake your hand very warmly. Says, "Good to see you as always, my friend."
My friend, it's a pleasure and an honor. Never a chore. To what do I owe this pleasure?
He says, "Well, the pleasure is not mine to give this night." He says, "I believe it is Sir Thomas's. It seems we have all been summoned here for some reason or another. I don't know what it is, but what I will say is that I'm glad it has happened. It is so nice to see you all again." And then he will turn to Barnaby and he says, "My child, how are you keeping?" And Barnaby says, "We live next door to each other." And he says, "Yes, but we don't see each other enough, not in occasions like this." Barnaby just kind of nods in a sort of humouring fashion. And then he will turn the owner to you and he says, "Ah," and he will take your hands, unless you're stopping him.
No.
And he will press them to his lips. He says, "My little twinkle, how are you this night?"
I'm wonderful. I'm really jealous of your cloak though, and I'm gonna, pet it and smooth out the velvet a little bit.
He winks at you and he says, "It is marvellous, isn't it?" And he will do a little twirl with the cloak and it will flick out and then settle around him very dramatically. Barnaby will quietly roll his eyes in the background.
I should have been Alastair's child.
And then he says, he looks across to Madeline, who's kind of separate from you all. And he says, Madeline, don't be shy. He says, come. He says, "I've missed you too, And she says, "I see your charm has not diminished." And will stride over and will more formally greet him despite his best efforts. And then a sort of strange stillness. There is conversation obviously between you, but that sense of all waiting for something to happen, of waiting for something. And then as you're kind of gradually starting to look naturally towards the door, it will be opened by Eugene, who will say, "My lords and ladies, Sir Thomas is ready for you now, if you would care to follow me." Madeline...
Go
on, Chester.
Sorry. I was going to say, as soon as an opportunity to exit this room appears, I will proudly and dominantly walk forward, not looking back.
So there is this moment that the rest of you will observe, which is that Madeline goes to walk out, kind of following, almost like to lead you into the next room. But Chester is so quick when he strides off that he gets to pole position. And those of you with keen senses and who are good at kind of reading people, which I think is everybody, will notice her obvious frustration. She hides it fairly quickly, but you will catch that instant where she's just like, "Damn you, Chester." And then she will assume a very kind of elegant pose and follow him, as if, of course, that was what was always supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. If Barnaby isn't doing anything, Marjorie will offer an arm to Leona.
I'm gonna have both of my people's arms and walk with them.
Excellent.
I'm happy as a clam sandwiched between these two.
Okay, so you will be escorted into the chamber by Marjorie and Barnaby, and Alastair will sweep in behind you all, swishing at all opportunities. So you will find yourself coming into quite a grand chamber that, again, you've all been to, apart from probably Leona, in fact, at least once before. It is a stone cold floor, but there is a thick red carpet that covers it. There are some quite grand tables which could, cater for many people if they were to sit and feast. You will see alcoves in the walls which have antique armor set into them to admire, as well as pictures. It is a highly decorated room. Everything here is pristinely kept and ancient in feel. It does feel like stepping back in time when you step into this room. Like something almost magical, perhaps, for some of you, or oppressive and old and musty for others, depending on your feeling. However, as grand as the room is, and impressive as it is nothing compared to the figure that sits there. He is not seemingly doing anything or making any kind of effort, but simply by existing in this space is his. And you will find your attention is drawn, unless you are actively looking at other people or doing other things. It is naturally drawn to him, and that sense of always wanting to be slightly aware of what's he doing, and has he noticed me? Is his attention on me? It is a palpable thing. And certainly, Marjorie, for you, having been away It is a feeling. You realise now the memories of them were pale indeed. Now you're back in the real situation. So, could we have a quick description of Sir Thomas?
Yes. So Sir Thomas is quite a young-looking man, something in his 20s. He is very, very handsome. He has long brown hair that kind of goes just below his shoulders, and these kind of lovely, like, honey eyes, and very, very delicate and gentle features that perhaps are quite slender at this point in his life, and his skin quite ashen and pale, but nevertheless he still maintains that kind of beauty.
He is a beautiful corpse, despite the fact he is very evidently a corpse. So, Chester, you're in the lead. What are you doing?
I'm going to take stride pretty proudly up until I am right on the cusp of being between the formal audience distance and the intimate distance.
Mm-hmm.
Just right on that absolute line. One more step forward and it would be uncomfortably close.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be noticed, and I'm going to passively activate all, just because I want Thomas's attention.
Sure.
And I think that I will stiffly but deeply bow as I come into the room, looking forward to being out of this situation, but still trying to make the most of any social boons that I could get while here.
Sure. So you plant yourself and make your bow, very much vying for Thomas's attention here. We'll come to whether he gives it and where he gives it in a minute. It's worth saying that your vampiric sister, Madeline, will not approach quite as close. She will go very much to the appropriate distance of one who is respectful of her sire. So she's a few paces back from you. She does not try and force her presence or anything. Nevertheless, she will do quite a graceful and elegant curtsy with her very wide, with the skirts that she's wearing. Such in a much sort of softer way, trying to draw Thomas's attention to her rather than you. What are the rest of you doing? Let's go to Marjorie next.
I think Marjorie will also stay a respectable distance away. I think in comparison to this, she's trying not to be noticed as much.
Okay.
Sure, acknowledge my presence, but leave it at that.
Sure.
So
Okay.
she'll very
Leona.
much be near Leona and Barnaby.
I'm gonna stick to Barnaby's side, and at the appropriate distance, I will attempt to curtsy as Barnaby has attempted to coach me to.
Sure. So Barnaby is very much being respectful and all this, and he's following Marjorie's lead. He is not going forward. The Thomas's childer seem to be vying for the top spot at the front very obviously. Everyone else seems to be holding back. Although I say everyone else, Alastair is not holding back. He will step past where you are, and he will smile at you, Leona, and he makes a very subtle offer of his hand if you wish to take it. He looks like he's going to continue sweeping forward. It is not a public one. Are you taking it?
Yeah.
Okay. He will take your hand and he will move forward with the others. And he will come to stand sort of maybe a tiny fraction further forward than his sire Madeline, maybe. Not quite as far forward as Chester, but he will do so. And then he will do the biggest, most ridiculous sweeping bow, full cloak action as he does so, inviting you to curtsy with him.
I will, and I will try to be the most graceful I have ever been in my entire life.
Okay. Marjorie, only you can see Barnaby's horrified expression as this happens from the back.
She will She will try and look at him and just try to make a reassuring kind of gesture.
Okay, yeah, he will take some solace in your reassurance. But the question is, Thomas, your family spread out before you in their various ways. Where do you react to any of this? And if so, what do you do?
So as everyone is entering, I think Thomas will stand up from where he is sitting at the head of the table and quite gently approach, keeping a distance still, but acknowledging their presence. And he will say, he will smile a little, and he will say, "My children, how glad I am to see that you have all made it this evening. It's been far too long since we've all dined together, so please come and take a seat. You're home now." And
You will feel that little thrill when he smiles at you. You know, like, he smiled at me. Despite yourselves, despite some of you are hundreds of years old, you don't need this guy's approval. For some of you, you still kind of do. It's good when you get it. For you, Leona, it's the first time to experience this. It is like the sun. He smiles. It is like the sun comes out for a moment. I mean, a cold, dead sun, but nevertheless, the sun is pretty great. Thomas, as they are settling about in their places, it feels good to see them all. But you're aware of having to focus on them. You're aware of the effort that it now requires you. And you're glad that they made it now. You feel a relief that it's now and not later. So everybody will settle as you have requested. And of course, unless anybody's doing anything radical I should know of, I imagine they are sitting very obediently and looking at you, Thomas. So over to you.
Please, we are family. You do not have to be quite so rigid around me. Now, how have you been, children?
Well, events at the Funhouse have been proceeding excellently as always. We're expected to receive some dignitaries upon their next visit. The Funhouse is proving to be an excellent diplomatic investment for the city of Oxfordshire.
Still pursuing frivolous matters, I see. And you? And he'll look at Leona.
Sorry, I should just say, Chester, can you take 2 points of willpower damage?
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, no, I was just thinking like, oh man, that hurts.
Right in the ego.
Yeah.
And 1 stain.
Oh man.
Because Thomas is the heart of Oxfordshire, so if he says something, he can literally generate shame with any sentence he gets to use.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem there.
If you feel you have any convictions that would enable you to defend that stain, by all means mention them. And if not, then you can just take the stain. You feel it. Everyone feels it. Chester, one other thing, you're sure, maybe it was, you're sure you didn't imagine it, but did your sister, Madeline, just quirk a fraction of a smile at that? A little satisfied smile? Maybe, no, you're sure she did. That is just what she would do. That is just what she would do at a time like this.
Can I take another willpower damage?
Yeah, of course you can.
All right.
Of course you can. I salute anybody who wants to voluntarily take willpower damage.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just shut down for just a second, and look to the meals that are being provided for us and see if I recognize them.
Okay, I'll come to meals and things in a second. So I'm aware you're attending to that. Sorry, Thomas, you said you're turning your attention.
So he will turn to Leona and say, and you are new to the city. Tell me what you think of it.
Well,
Isn't it a wonderful place?
it is. It feels like home. Barnaby and Alastair take very good care of me, and it definitely feels like the best place I've ever called home.
That is good to hear. I hope you will feel that many years into your future.
Me too.
I think at this point he will gesture for food to be brought.
Okay. So Eugene will very slowly begin to bring you goblets filled with blood. But it does take him a while to cross the space. Madeline, by the way, has not made any major greeting. She's just politely kind of waiting on Thomas's pleasure. Marjorie, what about you? Are you doing anything at this point, or are you remaining where you were?
I think she is waiting to be addressed.
Sure. So Alastair will say, he says, esteemed grandsire, he says, might I approach you?
Thomas will gesture to the ground in front of him.
Okay. He will come forth and kneel at your feet. He says, though my mind is full of words that I wish to express upon seeing you once more, he says, they are unworthy. He says, might I clasp your hand? It has been too long since we've been in a setting such as this, as family altogether.
Yes, I agree. And he'll give Alastair his hand.
Okay, he will take your hand in his, as if it is a kind of treasured thing, and bring it briefly to his heart. And then he will release it and look very grateful. But he will remain kind of sat at your side unless you look like you're dismissing him.
Yeah, I'll dismiss him back to his
Then he will quickly withdraw. So there are these goblets being brought round with blood in them. Anything? Are you drinking them, or are you just holding them and looking elegant?
I'm going to hold mine and then keep making glances at Barnaby to see if he's going to let me drink it.
Yeah, Barnaby will not stop you drinking this blood.
Okay, then I'm going to attempt not to chug it, though I really want to.
Gotcha. Anyone else drinking or not drinking that I should know about?
I'm going to sniff it quickly and see if the smell resonates with me with Bloodhound.
Yeah, you sniff this
if
blood. It is rich and it is strong, and you will realize that you have tasted this blood before in your own life. This is Thomas's blood.
Dilemma. I think I'll just embrace the scent for now. Just kind of bathe in the bouquet of it.
Sure. And it is a bouquet that is worth savoring. It is heady and it is strong and it is rich. And you know, you've had a lot of different bloods and different resonances in your time. In fact, you consider yourself something of a connoisseur as one of the venators of the city. But you've never had blood quite like your sire's since the last time you drank from him, which was a long, long time ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie?
I like to think that Madeline has tried to, educate Marjorie as best she could.
Oh, yeah.
So she would know what to do in this situation, and since she is trying to at least show that she hasn't forgotten all of her good manners in her absence, she will drink.
So Madeline will raise her cup and says, "If I may, Sir Thomas, might I propose a toast?"
Thomas will gesture for her to sit down again.
Oh, so she will sit down, and Chester, this feels sweet because you think everything that just happened to you has just happened to Madeline.
This makes the bouquet all the more pleasant. Now there's just that little cant of shame in there, and oh, it's so good. It's so good.
And she will sit quite rigidly, but with great deference. But she also looks like she's just been struck on some spiritual level. So people are now kind of sat and gathered around. Oh, sorry, Leonie, you were drinking, weren't you? I should say that when you sip some of this, it tastes incredible. It is amazing. You thought the stuff you had in the fun house was good, and it was good, but this is wow. You have a sip of this. It feels like the kind of thing you can't knock back, that it's too strong for that. The sip of it floods your senses. It is an incredible, incredible taste.
I'm going to clasp the cup and look at Barnaby and go, "This doesn't come out of a bag, right?"
He shakes his head very slowly. You will notice his eyes are on the blood in his cup, as if it is mesmerizing him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm just going to look into it and just in awe and wonder of the things I've tasted in the last 2 days.
Yeah, it's been a heady few nights. Despite Thomas's comment of people not needing to be so rooted around him, nevertheless, there is a slightly kind of stilted air in his presence. Certainly, Madeline is not trying to push any conversation at this point, and it seems that Chester is uncharacteristically quiet as well. So is anyone else attempting to engage anyone in conversation, or are you staying quiet and waiting for Thomas?
Sir Thomas, may I speak?
There is a matter that I wish to speak of first to all of you.
Of course.
Please drink, everybody.
Is anybody not drinking? Yeah, this is all the SPCs.
Yeah, I think I've got a drink. I've taken enough willpower damage. It's too good, and the only thing distracting me is that stupid fucking watch on Marjorie's wrist, and I need something to not look at that for just a second, or I'm literally going to throw my fucking chair across the room.
I mean, it is definitely the case that she is your inferior. She's effectively your niece in kind of vampiric terms, are the closest thing. And she's definitely insulting you by wearing what is clearly your watch to this family occasion. She's publicly insulting you. Surely everybody remembers how important that watch was to you. How dare she? So as you're drinking, can you make for me a quick frenzy check?
Yeah. Oh.
Thoughts and prayers, everybody. Thoughts and prayers.
Oh no. Oh no, my willpower is
I know what your willpower is, and I know that
my willpower.
Don't worry, you'll get some dice because of your humanity.
Yep, that's good.
Difficulty is 2, by the way.
Wait, did you take your extra dice from your humanity? How many extra does he get?
I get 5 dice from humanity. Oh, what?
No, you won't get 5 dice from humanity. You'll get 1 dice for every 3 humanity you have.
Yeah, so that's a big old 1.
Excellent. You are drinking this blood, and you are side glancing at this watch, and it just gets too much. She dares do this in front of the whole family. She is trying to shame you in front of Sir Thomas. And you slam down the goblet as the beast begins to take you, and you rise from your seat. Everybody will witness this as he turns, his head snaps around towards Marjorie, but those of you who are more perceptive will realize not towards Marjorie just as Marjorie, but towards her wrist. Marjorie, you instantly know exactly what he's looking at. You also all see the snarl on his face, and he looks like any moment now he's going to leap across the room. Anyone doing anything?
Thomas does not do anything.
Okay, in that case,
He allows
Chester leaps across the room in kind of a rage on his face. He does not actually attack Marjorie. What he does is he is lunging for her wrist. Marjorie, are you doing anything about this?
Yes, she's definitely holding the hand in question away and trying to stop him.
Excellent. I would like you both to make a very quick, let's see, a contested roll of Dex and Brawl for me.
Dex and Brawl coming up.
Dex and Brawl.
I should say that as this happens, Madeline's tut, soft as it is, will clearly reach everyone's ears. And Leona, whilst this happens, you will hear Alastair, who of course is next to you, say, "Oh my."
I will just look at this in complete shock and horror and cling to Barnaby.
This is awful. Barnaby seems to be trying to shrink to the extent that he will just vanish from sight, but you can still see him despite his best efforts.
I'm shrinking with him. We shrink together.
So what were your results for people listening along?
That was one success for Chester.
That was one success for Marjorie.
Oh, wow. So it's an embarrassing tie. So essentially, wrestle without conclusion to try and get the watch. It is a terribly unseemly thing. It is increasingly apparent to everyone there that Chester has, on some level, lost it. He is not behaving as a respectful citizen.
I think,
and it is awkward. Yeah. Sorry, Marjorie, go for it.
Yeah, Marjorie, as she is trying to kind of wrestle him off her, will go, "Chester Andrews, you got your hands off me right this instant."
And we're standing.
You are currently standing. I should say, Chester, I'm very sorry about this. You're not actually in control of your actions right now.
Oh no! I was just going to remind you that I have a point in potence.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. So, I think what we'll say happens is this: you've said that, Marjorie, and you will hear Madeline hiss in your direction, Chester. "For goodness sake, stop this." And at that point, you manage, Chester, you've got hold of the watch, but you weren't able to wrestle it physically from her. But what you do manage to do when you get your fingers around it is you manage just to rip the watch off her arm, because your potence allows you just to crunch through the strap with ease and tear it free. And some of the watch remains on Marjorie's wrist, but the head of the watch itself, slightly crumpled, is now in your grip. And once you've seized it and you've got it, you feel that sense of rage diminishing, like, yes, I've got it, I won, ha ha ha. And then
in the shame.
As that rage fades in you, you have that horrible moment where you're kind of clutching the watch in one hand, suddenly aware of the stillness of your family around you, watching you.
I think Thomas is stood next to them at this point.
Okay, so Thomas was sitting down, but he's now standing with you both.
Is there a problem here?
It does appear to be so. Chester.
Excuse me, my sire. I was reclaiming a boon stolen from me.
Stolen from you? Are you
A
out
boon
of your mind?
stolen. A boon stolen from me, yes. This watch was given to me in exchange for a favor. And you
Look.
took it. You were envious and you took it from me. And
You are-
then you ran away rather than talk to me. How diplomatic.
You are horribly mistaken. That watch does not belong to you. It
I'm
is
fairly
mine.
certain it did not belong to me for the 8 years that you were gone, for the 8 years that you ran in cowardice.
Excellent. So I think this is definitely social combat. We are officially in social combat, which is obviously every storyteller's joy. So let us.
What do I roll?
Having had a quick physical bit of contest, let's move now to a bit of social contest. So I think you're welcome to try and persuade me otherwise, but I'm going to imagine that this is a persuasion contest. You are trying to persuade the other that this is yours. If you wish to be taking a different approach to that, then obviously do say so.
No,
No,
I think
I
this
think-
is definitely persuasion.
Persuasion is definitely the
All
way.
right. And I believe that you both believe that this is actually your watch.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say it's probably a charisma and persuasion contest.
Okay.
So if you could make that, you have ore currently active.
I do.
Are you, Marjorie, going to employ your ore in contest with him, or are you just going to use your natural skills to contest?
No, she would employ all as
Okay.
well.
So so if you'd like to make that check for me, obviously you'll get an option to add your presence dice when it asks about modifiers.
Okay.
Don't forget, if
Yeah.
you have blood potency that is, shall we say, above 2, which I know is the case in both of these characters, then you also get bonus dice on top. Also, however, remember that your bane severity will be a negative to those presence dice.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
You have to do a little bit of maths.
Yes.
Both of you are in a place where you do not feel comfortable and safe, and therefore your bane severities will be subtracted from your presence. If they are equal, that just means no bonus.
Yeah, I think mine are equal.
I think they are
Okay.
too. Let me know if you are rousing the blood for this. And also, of course, you can re-roll with willpower. I'll let you do your own things and then tell us what you got.
Ooh.
Whilst they are making their rolls, Leona, you're observing this happen, and something that's just worth pointing out is they start having this argument, and Thomas is right there. This whole thing, when they entered the room and had this whole, like, we're going to respect your personal space and be, like, bowing respectfully at a distance, did not apply when Thomas moved. He is in their space. He is watching both of them. And whilst they're aware of him, they also seem very fixated on each other. And you're aware that Chester seems he too seems kind of like he's puffing himself out sort of on some level in terms of his presence, and is trying to kind of domineer. But that Marjorie is now doing the same. It's like both of them so just more vividly there in front of you, having this argument with the backdrop of this monolithic old vampire watching them. It's quite a thing to behold. Let's find out.
Yeah,
Let's
about
find
that,
out.
can someone help me with the math? Because I'm not that familiar.
Sure. Yeah.
So all adds,
Or adds dice equal to your presence.
okay, so it's 1. And then my
And then-
bane severity is 2.
So you subtract your bane
One.
severity down to effectively 0 with disciplines.
But
And
is
your blood potency will also add dice.
Okay.
So what's your blood potency?
Blood potency is 3.
So I believe that will add 1 dice to your discipline.
Okay. I will take that.
Cool.
Persuasion, charisma, and that would be a +1. Let's see. A total of 5 successes for Marjorie.
Okay, and what did Chester get?
Total of 6 successes, including 1 on a hunger die.
Okay, well, because you won the contest.
Sorry, that is 8 successes, messy critical.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Chester.
Then that would be for me as well, because one success is on the. Oh no, wait.
It's
No,
only,
it's
only if you get.
Yeah. He
All
rolled a
right.
10 on the hunger die.
Okay, excellent. So here's what happens. So you won by a margin of 3. I'm going to say that this is not halved damage because you are in front of Thomas and the family. So you take 3 willpower damage, Marjorie, and
Okay.
also you are aware that Chester, there's still something of that physical brutality around him, like that echo of the rage is still there. And although he's using kind words, the look in his eyes predatory, and his teeth are starting to extend kind of as he's speaking. Just the tips of his fangs, you can see them there. It is, not an appropriate display in such company. It is a shameful display. Nevertheless, you are feeling it. It strikes you. So my question is, are you remaining in this social conflict, or are you stepping out of it at this point?
I don't think she'd want to give in. No, she will continue to stare back at him as if trying to provoke him or either to get him to back down.
Okay.
Not saying a word.
And Chester, are you remaining in this social conflict?
I think that the beast would not allow me to back down at this point.
You are feeling like this junior kindred ought to respect your power. And you've proven it once, you've taken the watch, and the second time you definitely feel like you are making her cower slightly. But annoyingly, she's not just broken. She's not just kind of left the whole thing and said, yes, you're right. And somehow that fact that hasn't happened irritates Chester. And so you remain in the conflict. So what I'm going to suggest... oh, yes? Thomas.
Thomas, upon seeing the two of them go at each other and that they are not about to back down.
Oh yeah, there's no sign of either backing down.
He will say, "Children, calm yourselves. This is not how we conduct ourselves."
You're right, sire. Perhaps Marjorie should learn to respect her elders, and Chester will sit down.
Thomas will not let you walk away.
I will stop in place then.
It is clear that, but there'll be that moment for observers where Chester goes to leave and then Thomas is like, no, with a glance, and then he just stops.
I will not let this matter continue unsettled. We are family. Do you understand?
Yes, sire.
Of course.
Do you have anything to say to each other?
I operate in boons. Favors are my currency. To have that which is mine stolen from me, and then denied the opportunity for retribution as she fled for the lion's share of a decade, is an insult not only on my name, but on our blood.
And you do not believe this to be true, Marjorie?
My leaving was not all due to this argument. I had my reason. You exchanged the watch. It was no longer yours.
How do these words ring, Chester?
They are as hollow as any bell. They are nothing but falsehoods, beautiful but lies.
And it seems somebody is misremembering. I do not believe either of you are liars. I do not believe you wish to hurt each other. Is that correct?
Yes, sire.
Of course.
Then perhaps you will both forgive each other and let this matter slide.
If the one who has granted me with this blessing wishes it, of course.
Thomas will look at Chester like this is not a satisfactory answer.
Can you take another point of willpower damage?
No, I can't.
Okay, so that just means you're impaired.
Oof.
Yeah.
So now any social and mental contests have a -2 penalty.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
assume you've now got 1 aggravated willpower point of damage, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It is horribly draining being under that stare. You feel the rage that you were feeling is, on the one hand, subsiding, but on the other, you worryingly realize it's harder to hold in check. And that rational part of Chester's mind knows that he could lose a lot more if he's not careful.
I think he'll walk over and hold out his hand to Marjorie.
Thomas will look to Marjorie.
Marjorie will take it, and in a firm grip. Not an unfriendly one necessarily, but definitely firm.
Feeling the firmness of her grip, there's just that knee-jerk reflex for just a second. He doesn't follow through, but there's just that split-second impulse to use potence and establish himself, but he decides against it.
Then we are settled. Will both of you please take a seat?
Of course.
And as you sit down, we'll take a break. So let us see if we have the spirit of Dylan with us.
Dylan.
Dylan.
Hello.
Hey!
Hello.
So, do you have any questions for us,
I
Dylan?
do. Bear with me just for a sec. Yes, okay, so we've got a question from Phil asking just a bit of inspiration behind your characters for those who have made their characters and haven't explained it through it two other times.
So, anyone? Let's start. Kirsty, let's go to you.
Yeah, during kind of the initial conversation for the session, there was kind of an idea of a kindred who stormed off on a amount of years long temper tantrum, and I just kind of jumped on that. I thought that would be really great, and then we just kind of went from there. So that was the main Kickstarter.
Cool. And what about Zan? Let's go to you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the idea of someone who was only comfortable around people who were comfortable being themselves. I thought initially about doing something involving like a sideshow or a freak show, and then decided that kind of more of a club owner would be a little bit more appropriate. And someone desperately craving the approval for a job they're doing perfectly right, just not in the way that their sire wanted.
Cool. And what about you, Cedar?
Well, Leona is a character I've had for a while, but she was originally a Malkavian embraced in the 70s. So when I was like 1960, this is perfect. So I just kind of like molded her a little bit and put her out there.
Cool. Thank you. What about any other questions, Dylan?
Yeah, so Ghostbat is asking, how is Thomas feeling about what happened to Abigail and Andreas after all these years?
I think the answer to that may be in part 2 of this episode.
Yes, indeed. There have certainly been consequences of the 1772 one shot.
Indeed.
Cool. Any more for any more?
What did everybody have for breakfast?
Well, I feel compelled to inform those people that care that Carlos did have breakfast this morning,
Yay!
just in case you're wondering.
unlike myself.
Oh, shame.
Shame. Shame.
Shame.
Shame.
Shame.
I mean, this is what, the third week in a row?
Yeah.
Dear
I'm
me.
not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. What about the rest?
I had a glass of water and some rosemary and cheese bannock.
Ooh.
Yeah, fancy.
I had 2 crackers with spicy hummus.
Spicy hummus for breakfast.
Spicy
Goodness.
hummus. Yes. It's the best way to start your day.
I've learned something new today. What about you, Zan?
Well, it's almost breakfast time here in Japan. It's 4:40 in the morning. So I guess my what we'll call my breakfast was a pork chop sandwich with onions and lotus root.
Wow.
Ooh.
Mm.
Fancy.
Good breakfast, everyone.
Mhm.
So, any more for any more, Dylan?
Actually, I've got an interesting question, which I wanted to know is how everybody's feeling about playing all in the same clan. How does that compare to a game where you're all from different clans?
I
So
think
much
it's
more
very fun.
drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the kind of family dynamic of it all. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fun.
Everybody's just super petty. It's so great.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Being right is all about.
I've actually never played a Toreador before, so this is a really exciting introduction to it.
Cool. And Dylan, any more?
There's not. I think we'll move on just so we.
Excellent.
enough
Sorry,
time
if
to
I
get through
seem
stuff.
like I'm hustling things, it's only that I'm aware of what I want to squeeze into part 2. So apologies if anyone had any other questions or things they wanted to put forward, and we'll try and address them kind of in the future.
Bye.
So
Bye, Billy.
we are gathered at Broughton Castle at the north end of Oxfordshire for a family gathering at the request of Sir Thomas de la Moor. And everybody is seated. Various disputes seem to have been had. Various vying for attention has been had. Some people have scars upon their soul or willpower to prove it. Others seem to be relatively intact. But now, with these very, very pleasant goblets of blood in your hands that you have mostly drained by now, that I should say will restore a level of hunger to you easily. And for many of you will mean you don't feel hungry at all in this moment. They will also, of course, whilst the glow of the blood is still with you, underline your love for Thomas in this moment, even more than it already was. You find your eyes, of course, drawn to this founding knight of Oxfordshire. So I'm handing over to you.
Children, there is a reason I have gathered you here today. There is something that I must tell you all. I will not be staying in Oxfordshire. I am leaving tonight, and I will not return.
Why?
He will look at the owner and say, there are many things that you do not yet understand. In fact, I believe most of you do not understand, but in time you will. It is time that I leave this city. I should not stay here any longer. There is something I need you to do for me.
What is it, my son?
The prince will not take my leaving lightly, nor the city, and I have a decision that I need you all to make. I have been trying to make it myself, but I cannot. And he'll take a ring off his finger. It's like a golden signet ring. It has kind of roses etched into the side and the crest of Oxfordshire on the, like, engraved on the top. There are other guests I have invited tonight. 3 of them. And you must give this to one of them. I trust you to decide who that should be. But know that it should be someone who the very blood of Oxfordshire runs through.
So Madeline will look up at, but has been listening very intently, and it's kind of a shock to everyone else. And she says, "Sire, that ring you wear, it is a gift from the prince, is it not?"
Yes, but now I gift it to another.
And it is also, it was given at a time when you became known as the Heart of Oxfordshire. Is that not also the case?
What is it you wish to say, child?
Do you not think it right that such a ring and such a gift go to one of your own line? Have we not proven ourselves worthy to bear it?
My children are all worthy. But this must go to another.
I don't understand, sire. Why?
Because it must.
She she's normally very composed, but an odd kind of expression crosses her face. And she says, "Again, I say I do not understand. I have done everything in my power to serve you and the city and the prince. Everything. I cannot believe that those people outside are more worthy than your own blood."
Can I chirp up at this?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna not look at her, because I dare not look at her when she's angry like this, and just look at my hands and go, "We'll fight over it. Like they fought over the watch. We may be worthy, but we'll still fight over it."
She says, "There wouldn't be a fight if it was freely given by you, sire." And she looks as if she is challenging you, as if to kind of demand that you change your mind or something. Of course, I assume you're not changing your mind. And there is that moment again where it looks like she is buffeted by invisible winds of social power. And she says, "Well, it may be that I am not worthy of your gift, sire. And as such, I think I am unfit to choose who she should go to. Clearly, my actions and judgments have not been worthy." And she stands up and says, "I will bid you good night." And unless you stop her, she's going to leave. Okay. You hear her heels clicking the moment she steps off the rug onto the stone floor. and they echo in the chamber. She leaves. Those of you with supernatural, sorry to interrupt you, Thomas. Those of you with supernatural hearing will detect various doors slamming further and further away through the castle as she is making her exit. Sorry, Thomas.
Do you all understand that which I task you?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Then stand so I can say my farewells.
Marjorie will stand.
Chester will stand.
I'll stand too.
Yeah. Alastair and Barnaby will also stand.
So Thomas will kind of go around the table. And to Marjorie, he will say, he will put his hand on her heart, and he will say, "You have a strong heart, but you must not let it control you, for it will lead you down darker paths."
I will try my best.
And he will give you a little nod. And to Leona, he will say, I am sorry that you could not grow to know me better. Please do good by your family, and they will do good by you.
It's not fair. I just got here.
He will embrace Leona.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely just sniffle into his chest for a moment.
Cool.
To Alastair, he will bid his farewell, and he will say, "There is something that I need you to do for me. I would have asked Madeline, but since she is not here, I will send you in her stead."
He will wipe a bloody tear from his eye, and he says, "I am yours to command."
You must go to Barrington Manor, and you must remove my crest from the wall.
He nods, and you can see him, that moment where he realizes that what you're asking him to do, but then he will bow, and he says, "Though it saddens me that you are leaving us, please know that we will never forget you." And then he will make a bow to the rest of the room, a much lesser one, and he will exit with a final swish of his cloak.
He will kneel down to Barnaby, and he will put a hand on his face, and he will just say, "Do not forget yourself, young one." And then
he just gazes into your eyes, doesn't really say anything coherent.
And then he'll stand up and he will go to Chester, and he will put a hand on Chester's shoulder and a hand on his face and look into his eyes. And he doesn't say anything, but for a moment you feel as if all of his attention is on you, like there is just the two of you standing there. And you will feel a sense of love, of fatherly love.
Thank you for the time. And I think Chester will kind of look down and try to look down for just a second and try to hide, but then kind of realize the fruitlessness of it, and will turn his head back up and just show the crimson tears rolling down his cheek.
Thomas will let go, and he will leave the room.
So when Thomas leaves, the room somehow seems smaller than it was a moment ago. But also, strangely, you will feel bigger within it, as if there is now more space in the room for you to exist as yourselves now that he has left you behind. Chester, you will recover 1 aggravated willpower damage.
Okay.
Because of your ambition. And so you are no longer impaired, though obviously you are still on very low willpower.
Yeah.
But you do feel like this has been something you've been carrying, that there's something has shifted inside you and you feel somehow restored by it. Is there anything you're doing in the moment that Sir Thomas has gone, any of you?
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to walk over to Barnaby and absolutely smother him in a hug and cry on him, even though I know it makes him terribly uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, he is like very uncomfortable about this, but nevertheless, he will accept your hug because he is actually quite shaken by what's happened as well.
Is there? I don't suppose that there's a phone in the room, is there?
No, there is not a phone. You don't believe there's a phone in the whole castle.
Okay. Where's the ring?
Where did you put the ring, Thomas?
He left it on the table in front of where he was sitting.
Chester will walk over and take it.
Okay. Anybody trying to stop him or do anything radical?
I think Marjorie has by now sit down, trying to not burst out fully crying, but definitely wiping away a few tears, muttering to herself. But as she sees Chester go for the ring, she's thinking about saying something, but will refrain from doing so for now. But she definitely gives him a pointed look that she has seen him take it.
So after a few moments, Barnaby will kind of, with Leona, come in. So you're all sat effectively together at the table. So Chester, you have the ring. The 4 of you are together, essentially, and Barnaby will say, I wonder who those people are. Who he picked, I mean.
I do too. Though, before I imagine we go out to see them, they will not walk in on us, but I think perhaps we should first decide the kind of person we're looking for instead of deciding from the options after we've seen them.
There's no point picking from an option that doesn't exist.
No, but there is use in the principles behind it.
I'm going to start taking off the outfit that Thomas asked me to wear.
Okay. And of course, you have your other outfit underneath. So, ta-da! And actually, again, when you do that, you feel a bit better. A little bit more yourself.
I'm going to reach out my hand to Chester and say, can I look at it?
Of course. And no. I'm not wearing the ring. The ring is just in my palm. And I'll open my hand to her, but not directly place it in her hand.
I'm gonna take it and just turn it over.
Just a quick note. Leona goes to take it from your palm. Are you trying to stop her?
I think I'll say, look, but don't touch. Don't get used to touching something that you'll never be able to hold again.
I'm very used to that.
So as you're looking at the ring and the door will open, those of you with astute memories will know that Thomas gave an order some time ago to bring these guests in, but it seems to have taken Eugene this long to go and find them and then bring them back to the room where you are. But he will open the door and he will usher in 3 other people, and you will recognize all 3 of them. So the first one has already been described in this session, and that is Wallace, who will be very kind of like dressed for a formal evening. And he will step in, kind of glance about the space, and then towards all of you. Following him shortly afterwards is Finn Douglas, who is one of the Brewyer of the city. He is the grandsire of Sir James Douglas, who's one of the founding knights of Oxfordshire. And he also fought in the games that recently happened alongside Wallace. Indeed, both of them will be wearing their badges of victory. Finn, by the way, is quite tall. He's around 6 foot, just over. He looks to be in his mid-30s. He has light brown hair, which is tied back in a ponytail, and a full beard. He has green eyes, and he is broad-shouldered and wearing a corduroy suit, a brown corduroy suit at the moment, and a white shirt. He is quite attractive and looks quite relaxed, despite the formality of the setting, whereas Wallace looks very proper and very much on full alert. And the third person to come in is Sir Marta. Now, Sir Marta obviously is a knight of Oxfordshire. She is also the child of Sir James, and she is significantly older than the other 2 here. So the first 2, Finn and Wallace, you will know to be Ancilla, whereas she is very much an elder in her own right. She's not as old as someone like Thomas or Sir James, but she's been around. She has quite wavy red hair, and she has freckles and quite blunt, hard features. And she's got quite a heavy brow and often looks like she is frowning. She is wearing what looks like actually a relatively fashionable green skirt, which comes in quite tight at the waist, and also a kind of green top and jacket with it, with some kind of belt with a kind of gold fastening. You will know, Chester, that she doesn't often follow the fashions, particularly herself, but you know of late that she seems to have been making an effort, or someone is making her make an effort. You haven't quite got to the bottom of that dirty secret yet, but you know that her behaviour has shifted for some reason of recent years. I should say, whilst she is wearing the fashions, she doesn't wear them naturally. Like someone has stuck them on her, but she doesn't move like someone of the time in those clothes. So the 3 of them come into the room. They have the expressions of people who have no idea what's going on, though all of them are, in their own ways, trying to hide that. But you're all extremely astute at spotting people's feelings and motivations and other business. So you'll all detect they are completely clueless.
Well, don't just stand there and let us gawk at you. You should sit.
They will all come and sit down. Finn will look at you, Leona, and says, I remember you from court. You've just sworn your oath, eh?
Yeah, I'm brand new. I remember you.
He beams when you say that. I'm glad to hear it. Must be a lot of new faces there.
Yeah, yours is hard to forget, though.
His smile grows a little wider. Barnaby, his head sinks forward slightly, as if he suddenly wants to examine the table. So Marta will say, I was given to understand Sir Thomas wished us to come here. Is he also here? Or are we waiting for him to arrive?
Sir Thomas is no longer in the building. I want each one of you to tell me why you suspected Sir Thomas brought you here. No wrong answers. I'm just curious.
So Marta says, I thought maybe he'd want some counsel. He seemed troubled lately. I'm surprised to find all of you here, if I'm honest.
We are his children.
Finn says, to be honest with you, I didn't really know. I was very excited though. I've never been invited here before. And Wallace will say, it's not really my place to make assumptions about my betters, but I must admit I was curious.
I think it's best if we just tell them instead of trying to, dance around the issue. I think, if you tell them, you can look at them and see how they react, right? Like it's a good idea to look at people and see how their faces react.
So Marta says, I find myself in agreement with the little one. Why don't you tell me? Not waste my time.
One of you is walking out of here with immense power. The other two will walk out with disappointment.
So Marta will nod, and then she says, then I have some advice for you, Chester. Be very careful who you disappoint, because we all have long memories here.
Yes, we do.
Wallace will say, I'm sure I speak for the three of us when I say we are all interested in your offer. And if you have any ways in which we can persuade you of our suitability, then we'd be eager to hear them.
You shouldn't be persuaded. We shouldn't be persuaded in making this decision.
Honestly, my decision's already made. Unless there's anyone in this room that wishes to question it, I, being the eldest in the room, will make a decision.
No, that is not up to you. It is up to all of us. Chester.
Barnaby will say very quietly, but of course most of you are either very close to him or have supernatural hearing, will say he did ask all of us together. It seemed important to him that we
Yes, I've made up my mind, so why don't the rest of you speak your opinions?
Finn says, do you want us to leave the room while you have this wee chat of yours? I mean, seems like you've got something to discuss before you make your whatever this decision is.
That depends on my family. If they're comfortable speaking their mind in your presence.
So Marta folds her arms. Are you? Are you comfortable?
I am.
She gives you a respectful nod. She looks at Barnaby, who...
I will hold Barnaby's hand under the table.
And you know that he is lying his arse off with that nod. He is not comfortable at all. And then she looks at you, Marjorie. She says, you've been missed, Marjorie.
It is good to know that I have been missed. I wish I'd returned under better circumstances. But yes, I am comfortable.
You're comfortable. Good. Then I don't need to walk out again. she'll sit back and regard you with a kind of well expression on her face. Wallace will say, "Forgive me, but it's very strange being invited here without understanding what's going on when there are things of clear consequence being decided."
Sir Thomas de la Moore is no longer in the picture. He has decided to abdicate his place in Oxfordshire.
There is a look of clear surprise on all of their faces.
As we speak, his coat of arms is being removed.
He left us.
Finn looks stricken. He's like, he can't go. That's a disaster.
That's what I said.
No, I agree. It is, but
So Marta says, "I agree. It is a disaster. There's a hole now. A hole in the city."
there is.
Wallace, your thoughts?
Wallace looks like he's thinking very hard.
Can
Good,
I
he'll know how we feel.
insight check him with my specialty, which is desires?
Yeah, okay. You don't need to roll for this because you got a very good pull. You get the sense that he wants whatever the hell this is. He doesn't know what it is. He knows that he wants it. He wants it, and he's trying to figure out the best way to get it. And that is what. And you know, he's obviously choosing his words carefully. He says, "Well, are you saying that Sir Thomas has bequeathed something in a will of sorts, or that he is giving up his castle?" He says, "I still find myself somewhat in the dark here."
He's made the decision to leave. That which was his is no longer his, other than the memory that he leaves us all with. And it would do us well to honor that memory. But he has picked one of the three of you to hold his ring, to bear his signet.
So now the penny seems to drop in their minds. They all look thoughtful in different ways. Finn looks quite excited at the prospect of this. There is no hiding the kind of wow moment. This is kind of like in those superhero movies where, I don't know, Superman goes to visit some child on like after their birthday party has just ended or something, when they thought no one cared, and then Superman turns up and takes them for a fly around the city. He's got this kind of wow, stargazy excitement on his face. So Marta looks sad, but also her features have gone quite hard. And Wallace is staring off into sort of the half distance. He again looks like he's thinking very hard and very fast. She will say, "Am I right in thinking it's up to you?" She glances at you as a group. "Who gets this ring?"
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You say, Chester, you've already made your decision.
I've made my decision, but this is a group process. And let it never be said that I was a tyrant.
Well, then, given how important this is for the city, for Oxfordshire, for the future, I hope you all make the right decision.
And we can trust that when that decision is made, this being Sir Thomas's last request, I'm sure we can trust all of you to honor it as well.
Of course. Goes without saying.
Leona, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm going to point to Wallace and say, no, not him. Someone who asks after the riches of a lost loved one is the first thing they want, is not someone who is the heart of our city.
I agree. Sir Marta,
I
you
disagree with both. He's the only one who didn't state the obvious that this is a disaster. He's the only one that wasn't fixated on the current tragedy.
I can smell their greed on him.
And I can smell the greed on you, my lion.
Sir Martha, you mentioned there being a hole. Would you care to specify?
So Thomas has been here from the beginning. He is respected across all the clans here in the city. They don't call him the heart of Oxfordshire for nothing. When he goes, there will be problems. Many problems. You should understand whoever you give this to is going to make changes somehow. If you give this to me, which I will not lie, I believe I am worthy of it, you should know I will not be like Thomas was. I will not be a replacement for him. I will be myself, as I always have been. And a lot of people won't like that. And that might include you. And I make no apology for that.
I appreciate your honesty. Chester's going to take off his suit jacket and roll up his sleeves.
Okay.
And he's going to turn around to look at his family. He told us to pick.
He did.
I want to point out that every time Chester is speaking now, Leona is making an effort not to look at him.
Chester has got full presence going. Just flaring that shit.
Oh yeah, she's trying her best, but if she has to look at you, it is a look of disgust.
It hurts. It hurts.
Oh.
But it'll hurt.
I hope
It'll
so.
hurt later. It'll hurt.
Marjorie will stand and lay a hand on Leona's shoulder and say, my mind's been made up. I've decided.
Well, let Finn speak before we bring down our gavels.
Of course.
This is, well, I'm not the oldest here, you know, and I don't necessarily have the greatest reputation. I'm quite surprised, given all the people in Oxfordshire, that I was chosen, but I'm, as one of the candidates, I'm quite honoured, I must say. I would say that I've always tried to devote myself to the history of Oxfordshire, to learn about the deeds of the knights and how everything happened. And, you know, I might not be the strongest, but if what you're talking about is someone who cares about Oxfordshire and cares about what it means, that is absolutely what I'm about. That's what I love. I'm a historian. I spend all of my nights reading about this and talking to the people that lived through it, you know, and trying to emulate the best of them. So Thomas, you know, is the best of them. That's what's always said by everyone. And I don't think I could replace him, but I'd try. I mean, not to replace him, but, you know, try and be worthy of the honor.
I will also insight check him.
He seems to be being fairly straight up. He obviously really wants it, like really wants it. He's trying to be controlled. He's more passionate about this than he's sounding. Wallace looks like he wants to speak.
Wallace, you've been silent.
It seems some of you have made some judgments about my character already. But nevertheless, I would like a chance to put forward my point of view. As you know, Finlay and I recently fought in the games for the honor of Oxfordshire. And as you know, we were successful. And as you also know, with all due respect, he looks to Finn. In the way, of course, everyone who says with all due respect is about to be disrespectful. He says, that victory was secured by my actions. It's my name that is being spoken of in the other domains. Now, you may not like me. He looks at you, Leona. Says, but my actions speak for themselves, and they have the respect of the other domains. Now, whoever you pass this on to will need to be respected, for they will be questioned. And though I'm also not the oldest here, I've already established that my name is respected, and I come from a respected line of knights. So.
And with all due respect, sir, respect that is won through fear is not respect that should father this city.
I would like to think that my actions are not always ones that create fear. You yourself, I hope, have benefited from my kind nature in the past. Some might say the recent past.
I am aware, Leona.
My hands.
Sorry, what was that, Leona?
I said I'm just going to look at my hands.
Okay. Barnaby is starting to kind of look like he's missing something. He can't quite work out what it is, but...
Before you pass judgment, my dear lioness, learn to close the wounds you make yourself.
You're one to speak about wounds.
In the unpleasant air, you become aware that Sir Marta is starting to look a bit impatient. And if there's one thing you've learned, it's impatient old Bruyere are bad things.
I'll walk forward.
Okay.
I'll walk to her, thank her for her time and her service in the city. I'll walk to Finn, thank him for his dedication and passionate research into the history and bringing that into the living Oxfordshire. And I'll walk to Wallace and thank him for presenting a bold face for the rest of the kindred to see of Oxfordshire. Has anybody stopped me?
Chester, I will rip that ring from your hand.
Has anybody moved to stop me as I'm from one to the other?
He goes to Martha, he goes to Finn. As soon as he approaches Wallace, Marjorie will save him.
Chester drops the ring in Wallace's hand.
She's lunging at him.
Okay. So, couple of things that will be in your mind, Toreador, and that is that Sir Thomas's last request was that you as a unit made this decision. Now, I think as kindred, it's entirely fair for some of you to decide that as older kindred, that basically means you make the call and the younger ones shut up and listen. But nevertheless, displaying this kind of behavior, bear in mind, Sir Marta is a Knight of Oxfordshire as well. You are shaming yourself in some way in front of her. So, Marjorie, you're quite quick. You can certainly try and interrupt Chester in this act if you wish to do so.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I guess this is probably also, because this is about speed. So I'm going to say this is going to come off Dex and Brawl this time again. You're back to what territory?
All right. Can I use my celerity?
Okay. So for this, you can add your celerity as bonus die to your action.
And by that, I mean I'd like to use Blink if I can.
Yes. Okay. Well, by blinking, you can easily interpose yourself between Wallace and Chester before you can do that. So maybe we'll just say that because it's cleaner. So if you just rouse for your blink, but basically 1 minute you're sitting there, the next you are between them.
I will make a rouse. Okay. She will try to snatch the ring from his hand.
Okay, if you're going to try and take it, it will be a contested roll.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. If you make your roll.
What would that be? A dexterity and...
Dexterity and brawl, but you can add your celerity die to it. Chester, you can also, if you have any celerity, add yours to it, but if not, it's going to be dex and brawl for you.
Can I add my potence to hold on to it?
Yes, I will allow you to do that.
Okay. Dexterity. Ooh, boy, I'm outdiced real hard.
Boy.
I
I wanna... Oh.
I'm gonna... yeah, I can't do anything.
All right, so what were your results? Are those listening along?
2
No
successes.
So 2 and none. Okay, so Marjorie, you flash forward, and as Chester is dropping the ring, and I should say Wallace's hand does naturally start to move up to receive said ring. In the moment where it is in the air, you just catch it from the air. You blink into the space between them, you have it in your hand.
You disgrace our sire.
No, you do. You. He asked us to decide as a family, and I will not have you come in here and.
As a family, we have irreconcilable opinions.
But as a community, we must form one. And it is not made by you deciding for all.
I offer an open challenge if you disagree.
Wallace will say, I think it's more appropriate if we excuse ourselves until you've come to a more reasonable position.
No, we need witnesses for this.
So Marta will say, well spoken. Let's get this done. Finn will say, I don't want to speak out of turn. So Marta glares at him. And he says, but, I mean, if I remember correctly, it was a gift, from the prince to Sir Thomas. It's not something that should be fought over. It's something that should be given.
And it has been.
It has not been.
It definitely has not been. Why do you keep trying to decide for us? You're not...
I am the oldest. I am the one who has earned this right to make the decision.
Stop trying to be him.
I'm not a fledgling. As much respect as I have for you, you are too young to know the ways of this community. And I am not some dog that has run for the last decade with my tail between my legs.
All right, I think we are in social combat again. Good old total social combat. So let us say then, so Chester, are you trying to intimidate them down, or are you just trying to take like a leadership position, like I'm in command here? What's your...
I think he's just trying to take a clear leadership position.
Okay, so let's say this is going to be a charisma and leadership check for you. I'm not convinced, Leona, that you're trying to take command, more that you're trying to persuade. So I think for you, it will be a charisma and persuasion. And actually, let's do a quick query. Do we feel that Marjorie or Leona is leading the other side of the argument? Because what I'll effectively do is give one of you as an assist to the other.
I think that Leona's portion in the discussion is more considerable than Marjorie's is. Marjorie is just there to back her up and get physical.
So in that case, what is your persuasion skill, Marjorie?
2 dots.
And do you have any presence backing it?
I could. I'm not sure if all was still up from the previous argument, but
Let's assume yes.
Let's assume yes.
All right. So basically, Leona, you will get +1 success to whatever you get from Marjorie's assistance. So if you can both make your rolls. Barnaby is currently not engaged in this social combat and is not adding dice to either side. He's just looking kind of mildly appalled in the background.
So this is persuasion and what?
Charisma and persuasion from you, and then from Chester, charisma and leadership.
With presence.
Yes.
Excellent. Leadership and charisma.
So don't forget, Bane severities still apply.
Oh yeah, I get a negative to this, don't I?
You'll get a negative to your presence, yeah, but only -1.
Okay, I'm not using any presents right now.
You're not using presence. Okay, then it's just your charisma and your...
Wow.
Alright.
Can I rouse the beast?
You can certainly
Try.
roll the blood for an extra die. Both of you can if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do it.
You will be aware that this social conflict is being witnessed by a Knight of Oxfordshire and 2 Ancilla of Oxfordshire, and therefore the potential willpower fallout is going to be higher than usual.
Oh god. How do I roll just one die?
So 6 and above wins.
Yeah.
It's a success.
So,
Yeah,
does Leona's hunger increase?
Yeah, we'll worry about rouses in a minute. Let's just get the social combat covered. So, for the benefit of people listening along, can you tell us what you got?
First round, I got 2 successes, and then I just got 1 more.
First round, 2 successes. Second round, none.
Okay, with your 2 successes, including the bonus success from Marjorie, from the assist.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so the first round is 2 successes for Chester and 3 for Leona.
It's worth noting that Chester also has a bunch of ones.
Oh, excellent.
Like 3 of them.
Okay. So in this first round, oh, Chester, you poor man. Right, so you lose the first round of combat because of Marjorie's assist, effectively. If it was just Leona on her own, it wouldn't be a problem. However, you lose the contest, and because you got 1s and you lost the contest, that means you are also going to get a compulsion as the beast begins to draw into you. But also that you lose that round of combat. Now, you only lose by a margin of 1.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm going to add +4 to the willpower damage because of the knight being present and your family in the home of your sire. This is a pretty awful, embarrassing situation. You're being out-argued by a fledgling and this kind of random niece that wandered off. This is hugely embarrassing for you. It is halved, however, so you're going to take 3 superficial willpower damage. I imagine that means you are now impaired. Again.
Yes.
So there is something, it is embarrassing, but her words nevertheless are ringing out. She has Marjorie's support and there is a knight glaring at you. And you've only recently been recovering from the bombardments that Thomas gave you earlier. You are feeling quite ragged.
Yeah. No kidding.
Do you wish to remain in this conflict? Or are you going to back down? It's worth noting you'll be at -2 dice for your next attempt if you try it. And I imagine you're currently in your aggravated willpower tracker. And should Chester go all... If basically if you run out of willpower, you will lose the argument. And you will also suffer in other ways if you fully lock out your willpower tracker. But you can stay in the argument if you want. It's up to Chester. But you are feeling like you are barely holding it together here. And it feels like unsafe ground without allies.
Pooh. Is there agreement on Finn?
No.
Yes.
2-1. You're out. And I hand the ring to Finn.
Hang on a second. Do you say anything, Marjorie, to this?
I'm just thinking.
Or no, I don't have the ring. Yeah, shit. I don't have the ring. I don't have that authority.
You don't have the ring. So you say two, so you can't give the ring, but you can say 2-1 for Finn.
I'm gonna look at Marjorie and say, he's kind and he's chivalrous, and he will not disappoint us. He knows the city inside and out, and he's young. He'll move with the times.
I agree with all of that, but with his...
Did you exist to only be a thorn in our sides?
No, let me speak. I agree with what you're saying, Leona, but I think Finn's interest in the history of our city, I don't think the city will move forward if he takes this role. I think he will want to make the same history. I think it will repeat, which is why I think it should go to Sir Martha. Willing to make the changes.
Barnaby softly clears his throat at this point and says, I think if this goes to someone who isn't strong, it's going to make a lot of people very angry. I think it should go to Sir Marta because she's respected enough and strong enough to hold on to it without it being taken from her by someone else.
I'm gonna look at Barnaby and get very close to him and look him in the eye and say, is this what you want?
Are you genuinely asking him, or are you actually doing a kind of cozy up social combat to get him to change it?
No, I'm genuinely asking him.
He says very quietly, Finn's sweet, but he's not that bright.
I will whisper back very quietly, just how I like him. And then I will look up and I go, my vote goes to Marta.
Chester, I will not make this decision without you.
I think Chester's going to put his hand through a wall.
Okay. There is a cracking of stone as you put your hand through the wall.
You are all just like Father. You all exist to only rob me of any power, of any glory.
You rob yourself. You cheat yourself every time because you put what you want above what is needed and necessary. And I saw that tonight. I love you. And you're still a monster.
And you will be in 3 years. We are all monsters. Embrace that, and maybe we can have a little bit happier of a life.
Marta says, do I understand it right? Have you made your decision yet, or is this going to go on for much longer?
No, the decision's been made. And I storm out.
So you storm out, Chester. Where are you going, just for my reference?
I am going... I'm going back to my kingdom.
Okay, so I'll come back to you later. He storms out. Marta will turn her attention to you. Wallace... Actually, no, Wallace won't go anywhere. He'll stay there. Finn will stay there as well.
Sir Martha, Knight of Oxford. I know I have not been in the city for a while. And while that might influence my decision, I don't necessarily believe that to be a bad thing. I believe you can do good for this city. I believe that you can change it. And while that is fine, do not lose track of what this signet ring represents. It represents the heart of Oxfordshire. That must remain unchanged.
She holds out her hand. Says, I agree.
Marjorie will hand it over.
Okay, she'll take it. And she says, the oath and the city is greater than anyone. Any of us, no matter our station. And we should be judged by our actions. I believe that. And I will judge any of you and myself by the oath and not your station. So you best be on your best, because I will be watching. And then she turns and walks out. Wallace will say, well, I'll bid you a good evening. He will bow. Those of you who are sensitive to things, though, will notice a not favourable glance sent in the direction of Barnaby and Leona. And then he will walk out. Finn says, well, obviously I'm disappointed. I mean, I'm crushed. But I think you made a good call. Can't have been easy. And I hope you can, patch things up. We argue quite a lot, in my clan, but we're pretty good at making up after. So, if you ever need any advice, let me know.
I'm gonna eyeball him and go, are you an Aquarius? I think you're an Aquarius.
He says, well, that's a complicated question to answer properly, given, the way star signs can be interpreted by different people. So why don't we meet up and talk about it sometime?
I'd love that.
Me too. But this is a night for other things, I imagine, so I'll leave you to your business. And he will excuse himself and go out. And the three of you are left alone in this now emptier seeming place. And I will come back to you in a minute. But do hold on to any dramatic thoughts you have or comments you're about to make to each other, because we will be coming back to you. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Sir Thomas is making his way north. It's not far from Broughton Castle to the border of Oxfordshire itself. It is a strange thing, Thomas, to be leaving this place behind. But what surprises you, perhaps, is how easy it is. If anything, it has been harder and harder to stay. And finally, you feel like a weight has lifted from you as you travel. Your senses, keen as they are, however, detect that you are not alone and that someone is waiting ahead on the road. A figure that you know extremely well, better possibly than you know yourself. It is Drogo, Prince of Oxfordshire. He is an impressive silhouette. He's a broad figure. He's not dressed for battle, but nevertheless, he's wearing thick and heavy furs, and he fills them out. The hood that he tends to favour is pulled far down across his face. And if there were anyone else on the road and they saw him, they would be appalled by what they saw, because there is little flesh left on his features. He seems to be mainly a thinly covered skull now, is all that kind of sits upon his neck. Fangs which never retract and which seem to grow that little bit larger with each passing decade. Nevertheless, you cannot help but look upon that horrible twisted visage with a piece of remembered fondness. For you know that there is some nobility within that blood, and certainly there are some great things that you have achieved together. He is obviously has seen you. I assume you're making no attempt to hide yourself. He says, "Where are you going, Thomas?"
You know where I am going.
I have come to remind you that you cannot go.
I will approach him. I want to be close so that we can see each other properly in the night.
Okay. Yeah, you do so. You come very close. The two of you are used to being close, indeed. Though there are many feelings boiling inside him at the moment. You step into that space easily.
I cannot stay any longer. There is still time for you to come with me.
We have talked about this, Thomas. You have sworn an oath to Oxfordshire, to me. If you go, what will become of us? We have built something together, something that has lasted the ages, something that is superior to the other domains. You are the bedrock of what we have built, Thomas. You and I. You cannot leave. I forbid you to leave.
I will touch his face.
He does soften when you do so. Like he can't quite maintain that anger with you.
Why do you fight it, Drogo? I know you feel it too. Come with me. We can be at rest after all these centuries.
I am bound by the oath as surely as you are, Thomas. I dedicated my unlife to it. We both did. There is no special situation that allows us to walk away from it. We are bound, body and soul, for eternity. You and I, and this place. You know it.
I am sorry. And I will step around him and go to carry on my way.
As you go to step around him, he will grab you by the shoulders. He says, "I forbid it."
I will turn and draw my sword and strike him in a kind of moment of anger.
So it's worth noting, of course, whilst you have been struggling for a long time with this and your control over the beast is not at its best at the moment, some part of Thomas is fleetingly aware that Drogo is his lord, and being true to your lord is generally broken the moment you stab your prince. So there is an awfulness, but it comes the moment after the flare-up. With your supernatural reflexes, the sword is in your hand, fast. I mean, Drogo is fast, especially for a Nosferatu, but even he isn't as fast as you when you want to be. Also, he's not trying to fight you. He's trying to hold on to you. He's trying to keep you there. And so he doesn't resist as your blade slides easily and deeply into his side. He sags at the weight of the wound, and he'll be holding onto your shoulders so that he doesn't fall, completely. And you'll feel, though, his fingers digging into your shoulders. Are you wearing your armor, by the way? Or
I don't think so.
Okay. In that case, you will feel the pressure keenly of his fingers as they bore into the flesh of your shoulders, like locking on like vices. And he will grunt. "You cannot leave, Thomas. I forbid it."
I will crouch down to him and say, I am so very sorry. And I will go to give him the kiss to bite his neck.
Ah. You feed upon him. And despite his anger with you, he cannot resist. There has always been an imbalance in your bond throughout the years, always favouring you in terms of who is dominant and who is not. And so when you drink from him, his fingers relax at your shoulders. And he slumps to the ground. And as you walk away from him, leaving him there in the dirt, your keen senses will hear his voice, where he says, "If you leave, I will not forgive. There will be recompense. There will be blood." But I assume you keep going.
Leave. Yeah.
You leave him there. Meanwhile, back in Thomas's home, Barnaby, Marjorie and Leona are there in this quite quiet place. It is strange as well seeing the cracks made by Chester's fist in the wall, because this is almost like a holy place to your clan. This is Thomas's home. This is his inner sanctum, and Chester has defaced it. And something about that is kind of painful. Oh, sorry, before I forget, Thomas, you take 7 stains. So yes, you are in this place. And as you are there, I don't know if any of you are saying anything immediately. But Marjorie, you have this sense as you're looking at it, like almost as if before your eyes, the colour is leaching from the hangings. And that for a moment, it feels like only you are standing here. And this place is cold and dead and full of ashes. And a shiver runs down your spine.
I thought I'd come home, but I don't think I can make my in this Oxfordshire.
Barnaby looks down and says quietly, "Well, that was awful."
It was. Was I able to do right by you, 2 of you at least?
Yes. Yeah, of course you did. You did great.
You have this kind of moment of peace between you. This odd stillness shared between the 3 of you. When... remind me, who has heightened senses here?
I think Marjorie does. Yes, she does.
Marjorie, you hear a knock at the door to Thomas's home. And then in the seconds, because you think Eugene probably is moving to answer it, but he's very slow.
Mm.
And in the pause before he gets to the door, you hear the door smashed from its housing. It's far away because you're not near the main door, but you hear the sound of wood splintering.
Someone's here. I could hear the front door. It's been smashed. Should we leave? I want to leave.
No, we should stay. This is our home now, too.
Barnaby says, are you sure?
Well, no, but I think I know what Thomas would want.
Well, he seems cowed by that comment and just nods resolutely. Okay, Marjorie, you will hear the sound of people, you think, somewhere in the castle, and the sounds of things being torn and broken. But moreover, you can hear footsteps coming your way and a familiar clank of armor that you know from past experience is made by Sir Francis, the Scourge of Oxfordshire. You can hear it coming. It's already closer than you realise. It's much closer than the other people who are obviously somewhere else in the castle. It sounds like they are trashing the place. But she is not with them. She is coming here to where you are. You think she is probably going to come through the doors very shortly. I say door, like the open doorway where Chester stormed out. No one's shut the doors afterwards. But yeah, so you can hear the clank of armour and also the chain of her flail. It is getting close.
At the sound of the place being ransacked, Marjorie will look in pain. And she says, if you wish to stay here, then brace yourself. She will also.
So you're all staying?
I'm going to stand and still hold on to Barnaby's arm, make him stand with me, and just face the door and wait.
He is looking at the two of you like you're insane. Like, what are you doing? But nevertheless, the fact that you're standing here and being like this means that he doesn't leave. He just stands there looking kind of like very worried. The sound, now you can also hear it, Leona. There is clearly a point at which you think you should be able to see Sir Francis, but you cannot see Sir Francis. But you can hear her footsteps as they come into the chamber. Clank. You can hear the chain rattling. It sounds as if maybe the flail is being loosened from its housing, being swung out at her side. Are you all just standing there?
I'm just going to take a deep breath and close my eyes and brace myself.
Okay. Marjorie?
Marjorie will look from Leona to Barnaby, back to Leona, Barnaby.
And at that point, a flail materializes from nowhere and embeds itself in Marjorie's chest, knocking her to the ground. And around the flail materializes a gauntlet, and around that an armored form, a hulking, huge armored form. Marjorie goes down without a word. There is no breath in her body per se to be knocked out of it, but she is slammed into the stone floor, which cracks under the attack. You know enough about Kindred to know that she's probably not finally dead, but she's certainly not getting up anytime soon. Sir Francis turns to look in your direction, Leona. You will see through the slit of the visor eyes that seem to float almost within the helm, as if there is no skin or skull around them. It is a horrible and monstrous thing. You're pretty good at sensing motives. You think Sir Francis is about to do something pretty similar to you.
I'm going to let go of Barnaby, and I'm going to say, run if you want, but I can take it.
Barnaby says, no, run, you fucking idiot. And then he shoots forward at supernatural speed. You see him race towards Sir Francis. He vaults into the air. You see him lightly press one foot against her forearm as she's pulling the flail out of Marjorie to swing over her back. One of his arms loops around her neck, so he's now kind of on her back. He seems to have produced a knife from somewhere, and he jams it into Sir Francis' neck. And then he says again, run!
I'm gonna book it. I've seen self-sacrifice before. I want it here.
Okay. You start to run. The last thing you'll see as you're starting to turn is Sir Francis put a hand over Barnaby to lock him in place, and then she jumps up straight through the ceiling and is gone. But seemingly using Barnaby as a shield against her back as she does so. There is a splintering of wood and a showering of dust and things that fall behind you as you go. Where are you running?
I think I'm going to find the nearest window and throw myself out of it and keep going.
You throw yourself out the window. You land hard. It's not, it's okay. You survive it. You get up. And as you're pulling yourself up from the ground, you find you're not alone outside. There are a number of people who seem to be wearing clothes to hide them from observation, hoods and the like. They seem to be in the process of defacing the outside of Sir Thomas's home. However, these are not the people that get your attention. The people that get your attention are Wallace and Seth. They are standing. Wallace has not changed. Seth also doesn't look like he's changed from the previous night. But the thing that is striking in both cases, they are armed. Wallace is carrying a saber and Seth is carrying a shotgun. Wallace looks at you as you're pulling yourself up and he says, my, life sure does come at you fast. And at that point, Seth shoots you with a shotgun. And as you're recovering from that, Wallace runs you through with a saber. And you see nothing for a moment. Let's come to another part of the city. Chester, you've gone back to your domain. You're in a really bad mood. I assume you indulge yourself in all manner of frivolities.
Or
are you doing what do you do?
Actually. First thing that I'm going to do is make an attempt to contact Wallace.
How are you going to do that?
I will I know the Wallace's the phone number of Wallace's home address?
Yeah, I think you will have the details. So okay, you won't be able to reach Wallace in person, but you will be able to reach some of his people if that's what you want to do. To get
Yeah, I'll put a message out to him to ask him to come and see me as soon as he can.
Okay.
And I will start setting affairs in order.
Okay.
Start making calls to other cities in the UK. See if there's positions open.
Sure. So you start trying to set your affairs in order, and you've not had a good night socially. Maybe it's time to cut some losses and make some changes.
All the guards are on high alert, and they have been given descriptions of Leona, Marjorie, and Barnaby, and informed that they are not welcome on the premises.
Okay. So it will be late that night. You're beginning to feel the pull of the sun where you need to kind of lay down, but there is still maybe an hour or so left before the end of things. When Wallace will come to see you. And he'll come in. You will notice he's armed. But he's not got a weapon bared. But you will, with your kind of knowledge of Kindred Society, know that whilst he's not a knight, he doesn't have the right to bear arms in kind of court and things. And it's odd for him to bring a weapon to you in your domain. He does serve the Scourge often. He doesn't have an official title, but he effectively serves as one of our hounds, and so does Seth. He will say, Chester,
I'm glad you were able to come. I'm sorry for the way tonight ended.
Well, I've got some more things for you to be sorry about. Seems the night is not yet fully ended, and it is the prince's desire that your bloodline suffer. Now, I cannot see the future, but I think it is very bleak for you here in Oxfordshire. So I was wondering, how would you like to owe me a life boon?
I think, given our working relationship in the past, I think I'm amenable.
See, it's going to be important that the city thinks you're dead. Because if it don't, then the prince is going to send out his knights to find you and bring you back until you are. So I was thinking maybe you being the territorial fellow that you are, you put up a great fight. And I was forced to defend myself as a courageous citizen of Oxfordshire, and in that fight I had to bring about your final death. There was great shame, tragedy, and all that. Obviously, I'll apologize that the prince could not deal out that justice himself, but as far as the city is concerned, you will be gone. And you and I, we can reconvene somewhere else at a later date to talk more about our friendship. What do you say?
I'm sure you'll be able to find me. Does an explosion sound right, or is that too over the top?
I can handle the details. You're not too attached to this place, are you?
No. The kitchens are on the first floor. The gas veins have always been a little weak.
He'll hold out a hand and he'll say, I do appreciate all you tried to do for me tonight.
I'm glad it was noticed.
Marta's not the only one with a long memory. You're a good man, Chester. Oxfordshire will be sorry to lose you. But you know, if you're not dead, maybe you'll live to fight another night.
Tell me, before I leave, is the curse that has been bestowed on me broken? The curse of this blood.
Well, no master of the occult, but I would say if your sire's gone and left, then he don't have much power over you no more. You should consider that a blessing.
I do.
Because maybe one day you can help me with my curse.
I look forward to it. And with that, he'll take his hand and I guess grab a bug out bag that he's probably been prepping over the last hour or so. Just identification, false identities, a cash, maybe a handgun, and keys, and not even keys to a car. Just leave.
Wallace will say, I can arrange you some transport out. Least I can do. They won't be watching my car. So you will be whisked unceremoniously out of the city, trapped in the boot of a car, such that you don't see the sun when it comes up. But you will be over the border and away. But as far as the city is concerned, Chester died that night after having resisted arrest from the virtuous officers of the prince. However, it is not final death for the others. So let us go back to them. For the kindred of Oxfordshire are gathered by a furious Drogo, where they will find the Toreador in chains. Madeline, Alastair, Marjorie, Barnaby, Leona. Now, you've seen the prince before, but you have never seen him like this. He is furious. And his fury is a thing which sets the court reeling. You are also, of course, suffering from injuries. You've not healed since you were attacked. Or at least not beyond the natural healing that occurred while you slept, enough to bring you to consciousness again. Now, for those of you who know more about kindred kind, you think maybe you've been given something to make you awake. That you wouldn't, Leona, you wouldn't know this, but Marjorie, you're surprised you've woken up. Well, you think this fast? You don't know how fast it is, of course. You have no sense of time. You're underground somewhere. This court is not as splendid as most courts are. The prince is talking even as you swim your way back to consciousness. And Drogo says, Sir Thomas de la Moor has betrayed us all. He has betrayed the oath. He has betrayed his prince. He has betrayed his fellow knights. He has betrayed all of you. His blood is tainted. It is a canker upon this city. And as such, it must be exterminated. Madeline says, please, my prince, If Sir Thomas has let you down, that is my failing as his child. Please do not bring in the rest of his line into this. I alone dealt with his troubles. It is, and before she can say anything else, Drogo grabs her and tears her head from her shoulders. There is a spatter of blood. The court look shocked. He says, "A canker upon the city," and he throws her head down onto the stone. He says, "And they will be exterminated." Is anyone saying anything, Toreador? Just quickly checking in with you.
I am just shaking and sobbing.
Excellent. So Leona is shaking and sobbing. And Sir Marta says, "Prince Drogo, you cannot do this. Sir Thomas's actions cannot be put upon his line." Drogo does not seem to have heard her. Now, you know it is commonplace for the knights to be able to speak to the prince. Often they all debate things as a group, and then the prince will just decide what he wants to do, but they always have the right to be heard. You think he heard her, probably. You're not 100% sure. He moves next as the next oldest, or around that, the next generation, which is, of course, Marjorie and Alastair. And are you doing anything, Marjorie?
I think she will just bow her head and go, "My prince."
Okay. You bow your head respectfully. And perhaps this seems to impress Drogo in some way. You're not sure. But in that moment, he destroys you nevertheless. Marta says, "I say again, you cannot do this, Drogo. I demand you stop now." Drogo ignores her. He turns his attention to Alastair. Alastair says, "My prince, we all bear sins, many sins." He says, "But do not crush the hope of the city. Do not crush the light of the young, I beg you." And Drogo says, "Your cursed blood brings no hope. You think this," he turns to Leona, "this is hope?" He says, "This is a vile weed waiting to grow in my domain." He starts striding across towards Leona. As he does so, Sir Marta says, "I challenge you to a duel, Sir Drogo. I challenge you to a duel. You will start this now. We will decide it by arms." Drogo ignores her and grabs Leona. As he's lifting her up, Sir Marta draws her sword and charges towards Drogo. She is about to strike him with her blade. But in the moment before she does so, Sir Francis steps out of nowhere, out of the shadows, with a stake and drives it into her back. I should say for this court, Sir Marta is attired as a knight. She is wearing full leathers armor and all of that. Nevertheless, the stake goes straight through the armor on both sides of her, and she falls to the ground in torpor, instantly. Drogo also twists Leona's head until it comes free from her shoulders too, and he throws down the body, and he is in the process of turning towards Alastair and Barnaby when he notices Marta on the ground and Sir Francis standing next to her. And his eyes fall in anger upon Marta, but then they notice something. Her sword has fallen from her hand, but the ring is on her finger. And when he sees that, he pauses, and something seems to break within him. And he simply makes a gesture as if, "Get them away." It's not very coherent, towards Barnaby and Alastair. And covering his face, he staggers from the court. And so it is that the Toreador, their status, their great kind of privilege and history is destroyed within the city. And the name of Thomas de la Mort is struck from the record. It is not to be spoken, lest it drive the prince to frenzy. Alastair survives, but he is not to be trusted. He's too old, too wily, and so he is chained and made a prisoner of the prince, a reminder of what happens to those who betray the prince. And Barnaby is all but forgotten, left broken and weeping over his murdered child, and he too is never the same again. And so the Toreador languish for another 50 years until Sir Marta's return from her torpor and punishment, and the birth of new Toreador and new hope. And that is where we will end our session for tonight. So I just want to say a big thank you to the fabulous players who had quite a challenge tonight, and I think rose to it admirably, portraying a much twisted family. So thank you very much for that. Thank you also to Mitch for his 3-time special on the Thomas de la Mort. And thank you all for kind of adding to the history of Oxfordshire. And apologies for the horrible, brutal nature of that session. Thanks again to Dylan. I also want to say a special thank you to Cedar for the absolutely fabulous art that she did for this session, which I really think kind of captured the vibe of the time and was really, really great. So, thanks for that.
Amazing.
Next week, Titus will be back in the Storyteller's Chair running a Manchester-based mini-series, a Manchester Requiem. So I do hope you'll come and join us for that. I will certainly be in chat watching along myself. And when that finishes, we will be back for season 3 of Blood on the Tamesis. So yeah, thank you all again, and stay safe, wash your hands, don't listen to Boris, and see you all next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.